All right, we're live. Let me know that you can see me. Let me know that you can hear me okay. Type in the chat if you can hear me okay. I only spent 3 hours testing audio yesterday, so I want to make sure that you can hear me all right. We can hear. Awesome. That's all I needed to know. Chanel, thank you. Thank you, Madison. Welcome. I'll be doing a lot back here. How is this? Can you guys see the agenda okay? Let me know if this is too small. I'll bring you in a little closer, but I'd like to be able to move around a little bit if that works. So let me know that this agenda is seeable. Hello, Katie, Chanel, Madison. Welcome, welcome, everyone. Yanilka, welcome. So jump on the chat and let me know that you're here. Let me know where you're from if you want. Let me know what you want. Let me know what you want to learn, what you're excited about, or what questions you have. Katie, welcome. Jesse, welcome. Phoebe, welcome, welcome. Lisa, hello. Calgary, Alberta. Yeah, tell me where you're from. It'll be great. Okay, so it's a little challenging to read. I'll pull you in a little bit closer. Uh-oh. Almost pulled the whole audio mixer off the table. All right. Better? Madison, better? Toronto, Chanel, hello. Dell, welcome, welcome. It's a little challenging. Okay, that's from Madison. So let me know, Madison, if you can see this better, and let me know, everyone else, if you can see this better. Maybe I need to write bigger. Holy cow, Lisa, we're just going to start throwing bombs right away, huh? No, I'm totally kidding. Hello from London. Excellent. Michael, welcome from London. Dell from Atlanta. All right, you know what? It doesn't matter if you can really see this all that much. Hang on a sec. Let me grab a seat here. And for any of you if you're on, I'm so proud what we just did. Watch this. If you are on mobile, if you clicked the Facebook link, Facebook doesn't let you, they don't want you to go off of their platform, so they'll keep you inside of Facebook. And if you're inside the Facebook platform watching this, you probably don't see any of the comments, you don't see any of the chat happening, and you obviously cannot chat. So what you have to do is get off of the Facebook platform, and you do that by clicking these. We made a visual for you. This is our first visual of the day. There are these little buttons, these little dots, not buttons, these little dots up in the top right. Click on that and then select desktop. And then it will open up your YouTube app and you'll be able to comment. Nice. You get my notifications, Lisa. Excellent. So welcome to this live stream. This is a launch of this YouTube channel. I am planning on releasing videos every week here, and for the time being, at least, it's going to be all on coaching. So any of you that are interested in any application of coaching, whether you want to be a coach, you're already a coach, you're interested in increasing your coaching skill set, you're interested in increasing your coaching business, or just the application of coaching skills. Maybe you're in a leadership role, or you just like the content and you want to apply it to your life. I am a coaching geek. I am completely committed to and fascinated by human behavior. And that's what I've really been up to for about 12 years. I want to start by telling you a little bit about me, for those of you that don't know my story. Actually, before I do that, let me tell you about this live stream. Here's the way the live stream is going to go. I have way too much content. I have way too much content for one live stream video. And we'll see. Those of you that know me, you realize I'm not ever committed to the content that I create ahead of time. But I have a bunch of content that we'll go through. I want to engage with those of you. I'm sort of monitoring the chat, but I'm not going to monitor it the whole time. I do have Charcy monitoring the chat, so she might be responding. Or Charcy, if there's anything that you really want me to see or respond to, then let me know. I'll do my best to see those, but it depends on how quickly they come. So I might miss your question. If you have a question, and feel free to say it again. So we're going to go however long we go. I don't know. I'll be on here for a long time. I did hear that there was a certain record on YouTube launches, and you know, I like to break records. I won't tell you what that record is though, and I'm not fully committed to breaking the record. But we'll stay on as long as it's valuable and as long as you all are engaged and so forth. And then I'll take whatever questions you have. My intention for this YouTube, which is called, this live stream is called How to Become a Full-Time Coach with a Six-Figure Income, not a six-figure business. I'll tell you more about the distinction, but with a six-figure income in 2018, in 2018. And so the way we're going to break it down are really those elements, right? The first thing we'll talk about is what does it mean to be a full-time coach? What does it mean to have a six-figure income versus a six-figure business? And then what does it mean to build a coaching business in 2018? Because it's different than it was in 2017 and 2016 and years past. So I'll tell you more about the way the markets are changing and what my predictions are for the future and what you need to do to set yourself up to still be around next year, because people have changed. Anyway, I got to stop there, otherwise I'll go too deep into it. Then we'll talk about the inner game, and then I will turn my notifications off on my phone so that those sounds don't bother us. We'll talk about the inner game, which is only the most important thing by far. And then we'll talk about the biggest mistakes that I've made, as well as the biggest mistakes that I see coaches make. And there's a little bit of a sneak preview over there on the wall with my biggest mistakes. I don't know if you can read them completely, but that's the plan for this session. And those of you that are just jumping on, welcome. Please let us know where you're calling in from or joining us from. And let us know what you're liking, what questions you have, any of that sort of stuff as we move along. Somebody says, Lisa, this series excites me. Awesome. That's great. And somebody says, I want six figures. Of course. But six figures, it means nothing. It really, truly means nothing. We'll get into all of that. So let me tell you a little bit about my journey, just so that you know who I am, not because I'm trying to impress you or trying to come from my place of ego or share with you all my accolades or what have you. But I want you to know a little bit more about my journey so that you understand where my philosophies come from and how much experience I do have. Because my goal for this live stream and in all my videos is just to be real. I'll share with you all kinds of humbling experiences. I'll be vulnerable. I'll share with you the doubts and the fears that I have and still have. And I mean, everything that I can, which includes money, numbers. I'll share with you certain figures, dollar amounts, and so forth. And then you get to, take what works for you and leave what doesn't, so that you can build whatever kind of business you want. And I think in the coaching industry, one of the things that has happened, especially over the last 10 years with the explosion of social media, is that there's a lot of, trying to choose my words nicely and carefully, there's a lot of shadiness in the industry. And that doesn't necessarily mean, there's a lot of scammers or anything like that, but there's a lot of shade that we can't see through. And a lot of people don't really know what it actually takes, or they don't know what's happening behind the scenes. They don't know what to expect. And I want to try to get rid of all of that to the best of my ability, so that you can play this game however you want to play this game. Thank you, Jeff. Now I know that 6 strings, 88 keys free is Jeff Fitz. Awesome. Michelle says, I want longevity. That's huge. It doesn't matter that you just get a goal if you can't sustain the goal. And a lot of people break down their goals or break down 6 figures and they try to do whatever they can to get to that point. But just because you get to somewhere doesn't mean you can stay there. And so longevity and sustainability and all those things are more important than just achieving a certain dollar amount. So we'll get into the mindset of all of that and much, much more. So yeah, if you haven't subscribed to our page, please do. If you haven't subscribed, there should be a little card over here that says subscribe to our channel. And hopefully that will help. Jared, I totally agree. So let me tell you a little bit about my story. In 2005, I had this tremendously empowering, life-changing breakthrough event. I was at a live event all about building a business, and they asked us to do a simple goal exercise. Where do you want to be in 90 days? And so I wrote down what I wanted to do in 90 days, and she said, make it something big. And I was like, all right, well, I'll make it really big. And then we were just supposed to share our goal with the person next to us. And as I turned to share my goals with this person, I just started bawling. And I don't know if any of you have had this experience where you write your goals down, but you don't agree, you don't believe anything that you just wrote down. I didn't believe a single letter that I had put down. And it was like, I want to make $100,000. You know, the typical goals that I just regurgitated out of my intellect. I want to make $100,000. I want to do this and I want to do that. And I just started bawling because I didn't believe any of it. And the fact that I didn't believe any of it, plus how much I wanted it, is what caused this huge collision between my ambition and my doubt. And then I became a mess, right? So I shared, well, I didn't share anything with the guy because I couldn't talk. And he walked me over to the co-host of the event and said, Matt, Sean needs some help. And I'm just sitting there like bawling. And I'll never forget this. Matt, he hadn't looked at me yet. He knew this other guy. And as soon as he said, Sean needs some help, he looked down at his calendar. And then, like, you know, he was checking when we could actually talk. And then he goes, okay, well, I'll be free in a few hours. So let's do this after lunch. And then he looked at me and he stopped mid-word. He stopped mid-lunch. And then he saw me and then he goes, ooh, this is about to come out. And I'm just losing it, right? So he takes me into the hotel lobby and there's nowhere to sit. So other than this piano bench. So he sits me down on this piano bench, full lobby. He's got to be 50 plus people in here. And he walks me through this coaching process, guided visualization. And I'm crying and I don't know what's happening, but I start listening to what he's saying. He guides me through this process. And after about 15 minutes, he helps me identify and then release this gigantic weight that I had in my head and on my heart. And it was all about not being good enough and not being able to succeed. And when I got up off that piano bench, I literally felt transformed. And I know we use that word very easily and carelessly, in my opinion. We use words like breakthrough and life-changing, but I really, truly felt like I had a different body. I felt like there was 50 pounds that released off of me in that moment. And, you know, I finished the event and went home, and my wife said, what happened to you? And as I started talking to a lot of other people, my friends were going, man, what's going on? And one friend said, you're smiling way too much while we were eating lunch. And he goes, what are you on and how do I get it? And so people were noticing this huge shift in me. And then after a couple months, I emailed this guy, Matt, back, and I said, whatever you did to me, I don't care if it's legal. You need to tell me what that was, because everybody wants me to do it to them. And so he emailed back and he just said, you know, it's called neuro-linguistic programming. It's all this deep coaching work. There's a guy that's going to come in next summer or this summer coming up. Just go to his event and and take the course. And I was like, whatever you tell me to do, I'm in. And so I just followed what he said. A few months later, I was in an NLP certification for 3 straight weeks. And I'm talking about no breaks, no weekends, 21 straight days. I was in this certification course. And I learned all these tools. I learned how to do what he did with me and so much more. And I learned all these tools. And then I just wanted to share them with people. So I got back and I decided that I wanted to do a speaking event. And at the time, I did. Oh, let me tell you this story. So I was at another event shortly after that. And there was a woman speaking on stage and she was talking about coaching, like hiring a coach. She was getting ready to sell private coaching. And I was in my head going, I don't need a coach. I'm not broken. I'm not a loser. You know, I don't need therapy. I don't need help. Because I was like in my macho-ness, right? Like I can fix myself. But the things she was saying was making a lot of sense, right? And so as I'm listening to some of the things she's saying, I was going, maybe, yeah, I think that makes sense. And so I was just kind of contemplating all this stuff. And then I remember having this thought. I had this thought like, okay, maybe I do need a coach. But if I'm going to hire a coach, it certainly wouldn't be a woman. That's what my male ego said in that moment. And as soon as I had that thought, she dropped this line on me. A famous Einstein quote. She said, you can't solve a problem with the same mind that created the problem. And it just pierced me. I was ready to hear it. And my ego had finally surrendered to some degree to maybe consider a coach. But when she said that, I was all in. Okay, I'm yours. And I hired a coach. And the first thing that the coach had me do is create an event, like 90 days away. And so I created this event. I didn't know what I was going to talk about. I didn't have any content, didn't have any stories, didn't have a name. I didn't have any of that stuff, but I said, I'm going to do a live event. And then she helped me create content and promote it and get a venue and all these things I didn't know how to do. So I was able to borrow confidence from her, and she was able to keep me on track when I wanted to quit. And I wanted to just keep pushing it back. And I did this one event. Now, at the time, after a couple weeks, I decided I wanted to teach athletes how to set goals and how to breathe and how to visualize and all these things that I wish I knew how to do when I was an athlete. And so I did this event. It was called How to Maximize Your Athletic Ability. I was going all over the place, like, you know, handing out flyers to all these schools and so forth. And a couple weeks before the event, I got this phone call from a couple women, and they said, we want to bring our teams to your event. And I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever. Who are you and what are your teams? I'm thinking like, you know, sports teams, how to maximize your athletic ability. And they go, well, we are Mary Kay directors, and so we want to bring our teams to your event. And I was like, Mary Kay? Hell no. No, this is how to maximize your athletic ability. Like, what do you not understand about that? But then I remembered I was filming the event and I didn't want any empty seats. So I was trying to put any bodies in the room that I could. And so I said, actually, forget that. Yes, bring everybody that you can to this event. Because it totally makes sense, right? Mary Kay, how to maximize your athletic ability is a perfect fit. And so they show up at the event. I do the event. I don't try to speak to them whatsoever. I don't try to include them at all. I just talk about athletics and the 3 keys to success: mindset, vision, and persistence. And they came up to me afterwards and said, this stuff really makes sense to us too. Can you go teach us? And I was like, hell no. No way. I'm all about athletes and I want to teach them how to succeed and dominate on the field and so forth. But after a couple months, you know, the Mary Kay ladies kept calling or emailing me. And then after a couple months, nothing was happening in the athletic world. Nobody was calling. Nobody was emailing. Nobody was responding. I wasn't able to put on any more events or anything like that. So I had this other male macho thought, like, if I go do your event, then will you leave me alone? Was basically the way I positioned it. And so I went and did this event in the Mary Kay world. This is April of 2006. And I didn't know anything about them. I just taught my same content, mindset, vision, and persistence. And they loved it. And I loved it. I loved the experience. I loved being in the room with all these women. It didn't matter that they were selling a certain product called skincare and cosmetics. What mattered is that they wanted more out of life. And so that's what I really related to, is helping people who want more out of life get it, whatever that looks like. And if that means increasing their business, awesome. If that means increasing their happiness, healing relationships, awesome. And so I then started to focus only on that one particular market. Now I'm telling the details of this story, and I promise you, there's something in this for all of you, I promise. And I'll even pull out a lot of the things in the story later when we talk about mindset and business strategy and all that. But in mid 2016 or 2006, I decided to really focus only on that one niche. And I developed a brand in the Mary Kay world. I became the Pink Caddy coach. I started doing Pink Caddy universities. I had pink websites. I had pink ties. I had pink business cards. And I focused on this one particular person. And over the course of 2006, I was doing some events here and there. I was doing some teleseminars here and there. I was really learning the market. Wasn't really making much money at all. I remember the first speaking event that I did, we made like $4,000, and I was so over the moon excited about that because I really sold my first group coaching program. That was awesome. But not a whole lot was coming in, and not a whole lot was being generated. And then in 2007, I got laser focused, and I found my clicking point. The clicking point is when you know who you're serving, you know how to serve them, and you know where to find them. When those three things come together, your business can explode. Most people don't stay in the game long enough, or they don't do the things long enough that are required to hit the clicking point. And so they just keep struggling and efforting. For me, it took over a year of full-on, full-time effort and attention and trying and mistakes and all these things. And then I hit the clicking point. And that clicking point really started in April of 2007. And then from April of 2007 to December of 2007, in about an 8-month period of time, we generated over $250,000. And all total in 2017, we made over $300,000. But it really didn't start to pick up until April. That's when we started to make some serious money, some $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 months. And that's when our business exploded. I needed employees. I had a bunch of different systems that I had to put in place. And I was just thinking so differently, right? I had money coming in from all these different areas. I was a school teacher. I was a probation officer in the background. You know, I didn't even tell you that part. Right out of college, I was a probation officer. And then after that, I was a school teacher. And then after that, I struggled for about 4 years trying to do network marketing and trying to do sales jobs and trying to do custom printing businesses. And I was a mess. I wasn't successful at all. And then all of a sudden, you know, we're bringing in money from all over the place. And I really didn't have the body for it at the time. I'll get into a little bit more about that. And then in 2008, I made some choices and everything was washed away. Everything imploded. This is that sustainability piece and longevity that you were talking about, Michelle. In 2008, I think we made $200,000, which is great, unless you made $300,000 the year before. And then in 2009, we made about $130,000, which is great, unless you made $300,000 and then $200,000 and then down to $130,000. And while we made $130,000 in business, I filed bankruptcy. Now, $130,000 is technically six-figure business, right? $130,000, and we had to file bankruptcy because I didn't know the business lessons. I didn't have the systems. I didn't understand how money works. I didn't understand the flow. I was too emotionally involved. All kinds of messes inside of 2 years, where all together we made close to $350,000, and it ended up with the implosion of the business. Now, luckily for me, I had made a lot of money in 2007. So what I was able to do is take the recipe that I followed in the first 18 months of my business and compare it to the recipe I followed in the second 18 months of my business, which led to bankruptcy. But this was really successful, and I was able to compare the two. And that's when I realized all the mistakes that I had made. And so it's that second 18 months in business where my company, imploded and crashed and burned. That's where I became a smart coach. That's where I gained all of my value. I didn't gain all my value on the way up. I gained all my value on the way down. For myself, for my family, for any of you that are interested in building a business and you want to know what mistakes to avoid and what things to do right, that's where I became a good mentor for other people, is on the way down. But it wasn't easy. It brought me face to face with things that I never thought I was ever going to have to face. I remember in 2009, I went to go get Carl's Jr. For my wife and I. Just wanted to buy a couple meals, and it was probably $12, $13, something like that. And I pulled out my credit cards. I gave her a credit card. She said it was declined. Gave her another one. She said it was declined. Another one, declined, declined, declined. My first 6 credit cards were declined for $13. And I knew the next 12 would be declined because those were my best 6, right? If my best 6 got declined, let's not even waste this time. And one of the best sales jobs I've ever done is talking my way out of that drive-thru with my food. I said, the bank is right over there. I'm going to go. I know I have money in the bank, and I will come back and pay for this meal, I promise. So I go over to the bank, and one of the tellers is a former student of mine. I taught her in 7th grade. And she said, hello, Mr. Smith. How can I help you? And I said, I want to get some money out of the account. And she said, the sheriff's department just came by this morning and they seized all of your accounts. Because I owed hundreds of thousands of dollars from before this business. Right? I had accumulated so much debt during those 4 years when I was trying to make it in network marketing, and I was trying to create all these other businesses. So I started this business with hundreds of thousands of dollars of personal debt. And this is like, 2006, 7, 8. Those of you that know what it was like, they were handing out 2nd and 3rd mortgages on houses, and they were just giving money away like crazy. So I was just increasing my debt like it was easy. And then it was easy. And then when we started to get really successful in 2007, I just figured, all right, cool. I'm starting to be able to make some of these payments, and I'll be able to turn it all around. But then once we went down, the business was now underwater, but the debt is what totally overtook us like a big undertow. I couldn't survive the momentum of debt that I had already carried before I even started this business. So anyway, I owed all this money, and they came in and seized my accounts. And my student told me that. And when I drove home from the bank to my house, it was the first time that I was as close to suicidal as I've ever been. And, I didn't necessarily want to kill myself, but I also didn't care if I made it home alive. And what I kept telling myself as I was driving is my family would be much better off without me. There's life insurance. If some big truck just comes by and takes me out, everybody would be better off, especially my family and especially my kids. And luckily for me, it was just a 5-minute drive through town. I don't know what state of mind I would have been if I had a freeway drive, or if I would have gone across a bridge, or if I would have had a chance to drive super fast or whatever. I don't know. But I just know what it was like for me to not care if I made it home alive. And, I've got at this point in time, I'm mid-30s. I've got a family. I've got 2 kids. I've got a mortgage payment. This isn't like me coming out of college and I have no money in my bank. This is me as a grown man and all these responsibilities, and I can't buy Carl's Jr. So during that time, I had to look inside and ask myself questions that I had never had to ask myself before. And one of them was, who am I? And what am I doing? Here I am 3 years into a life coaching business and I'm bankrupt. What the hell does that mean about me? And I also had to confront my own relationship with money. And I now can look back and go and realize that the way I was operating was going to crash and burn at some point anyway. So my higher wisdom, my creator, God, pulled the rug out from underneath me so I could learn the lessons that I needed to learn before it was worse. And so I looked at my relationship with money, and I looked at my relationship with my wife, and my relationship with my kids, and my relationship to business and coaching and all these things. And I had to ask myself some really powerful, deep, deep questions. And the beauty about deep, deep questions is they give you deep, deep answers. And these are the answers at the core of our humanity that hold the biggest gifts for us. But most of us don't have the courage, or we don't know the way down there, or we don't feel like we can handle what we see. Most of us never really truly look into all the corners of our souls and find the gifts that are down there waiting for us to relearn. Not to learn, but to relearn, to tap into the strength that we have, the courage to tap into who we truly are, our purpose. Why are we here? Are we having fun? What's this all about anyway? This body, this business, this journey, this planet, right? What is this all about anyway? Who am I inside of all of this? And it was those kinds of deep, deep, painful questions that produced massive tears, but also massive lessons that caused me to turn it around. And the biggest turnaround question I had, I can still remember sitting in the middle of the living room of the house that we eventually lost because of all of that. I just felt that emotion come up. I can remember being in the middle of my son's and my daughter's playroom. And I had this thought, 2 thoughts. Number one, this is for me. And I don't know what I have to learn right now, but I know that at some point in time, I'm going to look back and I'm going to thank this moment right here, this moment that I'm trying to get out of, this moment that I wish never happened, this moment that I think means that I'm a loser, that I'm worth nothing, this moment right here that's causing me so much pain I can barely breathe. At some point, I'm going to look back and thank myself and my God for this moment. And I can't wait till that happens, but I just know it will happen. And that just loosens some of it up for me. It didn't change anything. It didn't bring me the awareness. It just loosened some of it up for me so that I can move a little bit, so that I can breathe a little bit. And then the second question was a reframe of a question, because what I was asking myself through all that time is, what can I do to recover? What can I do to make money? What can I do to save this sinking ship? What can I do? And in that question, I spent 18 months searching and spinning my wheels and just looking externally for the things that I can do, while at the same time feeling awful about myself. How can I answer the question, what can I do, when I feel like I'm a piece of shit? Sorry if that offends anybody, but that's the reality. I felt like I was worthless, asking myself, what can I provide for the world? That's really difficult. And for whatever reason, this awareness came in and it changed the question for me. And I asked myself, what do I want to do? Because that's a fundamentally different question. Not what can I do, but what do I want to do? And see, what do I want to do is a question for the heart. It's not a question for the head. My head is what created all of this mess. And this is what Melanie told me all those years ago. You're not going to solve the problem with the same mind that created the problem. I was asking my mind how to solve the problem that my mind created. What can I do? What should I do? What's the right thing to do? That's all mental crap. And then my heart finally was like, well, you listen to me. And when I asked myself and started to contemplate the answers to what do I want to do, then I started moving differently. I really, truly started operating from a different place in my body, from a different place in my soul, because I was driven more by my passion. I mean, hey, I had nothing again. I didn't have anything to protect anymore. I had no credit. I had no bank account. I had no money to manage. I had nothing again. I was stripped from all the things that my head was trying to chase and my head was trying to hold on to. I was stripped from all of that. And when everything that my head was trying to protect was taken away and it had no ability to protect it anymore because there was nothing to protect, then my heart could talk. Finally, my heart could talk, and my heart could get into the passenger, from the passenger seat into the driver's seat and say, let me take over. You already screwed this whole thing up over the last 3 years. Let me take over, and let's actually start coming from a different place. And I didn't become a different person in that moment. I didn't gain any more skills in that moment, but I started operating from a different place. I mean, you can see the emotion that's coming through me just as I tap into it. This is 11 years ago. This is 9 years ago. And then when I started to follow my heart, the business shifted. Opportunities started coming to me again. I stopped repelling. I wasn't afraid anymore about making the mistakes, because the heart's never afraid of making mistakes. That's all of our head. I wasn't afraid of making mistakes, and I started to get in motion again, whereas for 18 years, I was scared of motion. For 18 years, I was afraid of making more mistakes. I'm not 18 years, 18 months, sorry. For 18 months, I was afraid of making these mistakes, and so I wasn't taking action unless I knew there was no possibility of making a mistake, and that kind of action doesn't exist. So once I was saved, if you will, from that thinking, then my heart started to take more action, and things started to happen. In that year, I think 2010, I think we made over $200,000 again. But let me tell you, I made more money. I put more money into my account when we made $200,000 than the first 3 years combined when we made over $600,000. Because I learned the value of business and money and systems and everything and myself. And so from that place in 2010, we started to rise again. And I don't remember the numbers now in my head, but it continued to go up. And then we crossed the 500,000 mark a couple of years ago. And for me, that was another ceiling. And then over the next couple of years, I was kind of operating out of my comfort zone to get there. And the next couple of years, our business dropped from a gross income perspective because I changed some structures and I just wasn't operating in full alignment. But our income stayed the same, which I'm really super proud of, because paying myself became a non-negotiable. And over the course of the last 6 years, I've continually given myself pay raises, regardless of what the business is doing. And it's like taking a stand for your income. Not that the income is the reason that you're doing this, but when we take a stand for this being an actual business, it changes the way we think of things. It changes the way we get into action. It changes the way we manage things. So over the course of the last 6 years, I mean, I've done so much in terms of markets and products and programs and speaking. And finally, in 2012, I started to launch outward a little bit. And I joined a speaking contest in 2012, and I placed second in 2012. But in 2013, I actually won North America's Next Greatest Speaker contest against thousands of participants from all over the continent. And that led to speaking tours in India and speaking in Colombia and Greece and a bunch of these different places. And I ended up getting on TV and sharing my message and developing all kinds of these products after I sort of came back, right, from that dip in 2008 and 2009, but more from a foundational standpoint. And so I'm really proud of what we've created as a company, what I've created as a man, what I've created as a coach. I'm more proud of the lessons that I've learned. You know, I'm more proud of these tiers that are remembering the effort that I took than the sales that I made. I don't care, honestly, when I've had gigantic months, right? We did $100,000 in 1 month from a sales perspective in 2007, September of 2007. It didn't change me at all. It's like, just more digits after the comma. No big deal. It didn't change me anymore. It didn't give me any fulfillment. It didn't give me any more happiness. What I'm more proud of are the moments that I got back up and what I've learned in getting up, not what I cowered from in falling down. So that's who I am. And over the last 12 years or so, I've studied personal development. I've studied human behavior. Really, I've just studied myself and shared what I've learned about my own limiting beliefs and my fears and my identities and all these things. And I've had so many transformations neurologically, which I'll get into a little bit, emotionally, psychologically, intellectually. I've shared so much, or I've learned so much. And I'm just truly fascinated by human behavior. You know, when I was 13 years old, I was hit by a car traveling 50 miles an hour that I pulled right out in front of. And if you look at the details of the accident, I shouldn't be here. You know, I shouldn't have survived that accident. But for whatever reason, I wasn't done. And I made a promise to myself that I would get everything out of life that I possibly could, because I don't know when my last breath is going to be. It was almost taken from me without any warning. And that's what I'm most committed to, is understanding human behavior myself, why I'm here, connecting at the deepest levels. And in business, we've done okay. You know, we've done pretty well. We've done probably about $5 million in sales. I think I've paid myself close to $1 million, if not more than $1 million, over the last 11, 12 years. I've got at least 150 articles somewhere floating around the internet. I've got probably 300 audio products. I've got 1,000 videos, you know. So I'm constantly creating, but it's creating from learning. There's this cycle that I've, you know, just generated, and it's all learning and then creating and learning and teaching and learning and building. And that's the only way I know how to share. That's the only way I know how to do it. So that's what I want most for all of you to get from me and to get from this channel, is what I know to be true. My truth, not the truth. Because everybody has their own truth, and I will never say that what I've experienced is better or more valid or more true than what anybody else has experienced. But my deepest desire for each and every one of you is to do you. Do what you're here to do. And when you can create a business around you doing you and you being you and creating the value that's going to attract finances, that's going to attract employees, that's going to attract customers, that's going to attract all these things, it's incredible when you can actually build a lifestyle around you doing your work. And what that means for each and every one of you is going to be different. But everything that I've experienced and the only thing that I teach is this inside-out journey. You know, the real, truthful experiences of what this takes. So that's my intention. I did not plan or expect that little opening to take 40 minutes. But I guess I did. Maybe my head didn't, but I guess I did. So welcome to all of you that have showed up. Judith, T, Tamara, I see June. Welcome all of you guys. Go ahead and continue chatting. If you see other people, say hi to us. Subscribe to the channel down there. There should be a little card if you haven't subscribed already. And we're just going to have a little bit of fun here, right? Hopefully we're going to have some fun over the next, who knows how long it takes. I'm almost through page 1. So again, from this point forward, we're going to talk not just right here on this live stream, but in my channel and in all of my content going forward. We're going to talk about fears and doubts and money and authenticity and relationships and the real stuff. We're going to talk about the real snotty-nosed, nasty, scary stuff from an empowered standpoint. And I don't want to make it sound like, you know, you've got to climb up this 80-degree hill over glass. I don't want to try to scare any of you. But I do want to be real with you so that when things happen in your business, in your journey, you realize that's okay. See, one of the things that a lot of people think in the coaching industry is that it's supposed to be easy. It's supposed to be you throw up a Facebook page or you put up an ad or you do a funnel and all of a sudden you make all this money, because these are the stories that you hear, right? This is my 6-figure blueprint. Well, some of those 6-figure blueprints took 7 figures to build. I know of people who did 7-figure launches and lost money. You know, they don't tell you that part because that's not the sexy part. That's not what people are buying. And I'm just I'm the kind of person that's like, if I have to spend $8,000 to make 10, that's fine. I just want to know that. I don't want to think that I'm going to do this thing that's going to generate 10 grand. And then afterwards, I realize that I had to spend 8 to get it. Now I'm pissed. And now I don't trust that anymore, whether it's the person or the process or the platform or what have you. So that's what I want to share, is just the reality, so you can know what you're facing and still choose it anyway. That's my goal for you. Not to convince you that this is easy, but to share with you that there's some real challenges here, but what's on the other side of those challenges is so freaking valuable that you say yes anyway. Don't say yes to what you think it's going to be, experience something else, and then say no because you were bamboozled, whether it was your own expectations or somebody lying to you. I want you to know what you're signing up for and say yes anyway because it's that valuable to you. That's what has gotten me through all of this journey in the coaching market, is saying yes anyway. So, continue to share questions, comments, whatever. I'm going to get into some of the stuff that I wrote here on the agenda. T says, we want the truth, the whole truth, so we can be ready. Yes. I have a thought, but I'm going to save it for the content a little bit later. So, I want to share with you 3 main things. Oh, by the way, I know you can't really see all that much, but that's my mom. That's a picture of my mom. It's not really my mom. That's a picture of my mom, and I just kept noticing her as I was sitting up here, kind of just off my shoulder over there. I did a one-man show earlier this year, all about my relationship with that woman who passed away 6 years ago. And now she has her sacred spot in the business. Anyway, I just noticed that I stepped in front of her, so I wanted to presence her spirit. And I'm sure Robin's about to tell me she's just like right on the other side of the flip chart. So what I want to share today are 3 things about the title: how to become a full-time coach with a 6-figure income in 2018, And then I'll talk about inner game, and I'll talk about mistakes, and we'll interact and have fun, and all these other things that we want to do. So first, what does it mean to be a full-time coach? First of all, that matters, or full-time is totally up to you. For some people, full-time is $20,000. For some people, full-time is $250,000. And whatever that means to you financially or time-wise is important to take into account. So much marketing out there, not just in the coaching industry, but just marketing in general. So much marketing is about these general templates, you know, these one-size-fits-all kind of approaches. And that's not going to work for most of us. It's not going to work, especially in the coaching industry. It's not going to work because you are the product. And when you are the product and you're building a business around your own life and your own strengths and your own challenges, then there is no one-size-fits-all strategy that you are going to fit in entirely. But that's what most people are doing. Most people are trying to fit their uniqueness into some general game plan, into some generalized blueprint. Now, unfortunately, those blueprints sell because that's what the mind is constantly looking for. The mind is constantly looking for the easy way, the guaranteed way, the safe way. That's what the mind is looking for. So that's why the mind convinces us to buy the safe blueprints, because they're proven. Look at all the marketing that's in the world, not just in this industry. You know, step-by-step, turnkey, guaranteed, proven. How can your strategies be proven for me? Just answer me that, will you? How can your ideas be proven to work for me? Just think of how asinine that is, but yet our mind is constantly seeking the proven ideas so that it doesn't mess up. But one of my favorite quotes now is a quote by Joseph Campbell, and I've heard several versions of it, but the one I heard and first and loved the most is, if you can see the path, it's not your path. Let's talk about that for a second. If you can see the path, it's not your path. But we're all searching for the path. Our mind is constantly searching for the already paved path. But if you find it, it ain't yours. That's not what was meant for you, and that's not what you were meant for. But your mind will trick you to think that we got to find the paved path. In reality, this whole life journey is about pulling out your machete and hacking away and making your own path. But that's where all of our fears are. So stop searching for the path. Get the support, get the awareness, get the wisdom, get the body to build yours. If you can just stay connected to that idea, then it'll be easier for you to choose what programs to buy, choose what people to follow, choose what circles to be a part of, choose what decisions to make, choose what products to make, choose what people to serve. You'll be able to choose all these things so much easier if you remember that I am building my path, not searching for somebody else's already built path, and hopefully it has my name on it. Your name ain't on it. And if it is on it, somebody's lying to you. Oh, Katie. Probably a dumb question. Nope. I'm curious how to succeed in a business when you have kids. Whoo! That's one of the things that I've not taught, and yet it's one of the things that I'm so passionate about. So let me get through some of this content and then remind me of it, or somebody else remind me of it later, and I'll give you some thoughts, but I'll build off some of the things that we've probably already talked about. So I don't want to get ahead of some of the things that might apply to that. But You know, that's the other thing that a lot of coaches do is they follow people that don't have the same lifestyle that they have. You know, when I was young in this industry, I was following all these people, and then one day I realized none of these people have families. But I have 2 young kids and a wife and a house payment. And I'm following people that either don't have families or their families don't like them. And I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bus. I don't have any, you know, I have love for everybody that wants to do this work. And so I don't have any judgment or think that, you know, people are not valid if they don't have families, but they're not me. And so if I'm following somebody who has a lifestyle or beliefs or has situations that are different than mine and I'm following their recipe, how successful is that going to be? Now, there's nothing wrong with taking some of the elements of those recipes and apply them to yourself, but that's not what the head usually does. The head just wants the whole recipe and follow it all, and that's the safe route, right? So you absolutely want to learn as much as you can from as many people as possible, but don't try to fit yourself into somebody else's recipe, especially somebody else that ain't like you. So let me get back to whatever I was talking about. I don't know. Oh, it's all about yourself. It's all about you. So full-time coach has to have you in it. And once we start with you first, then we can build, right? If you try to build a template, a coaching template, and then create, or not create, but and then try to fit yourself in there, your family, your values, your ideals, your desire for however much time you want to put into the business and how much time you want to spend with your family and how much time you want to quilt or do whatever hobbies you want, right? Those are probably not built into the template. So we have to start with ourselves and then we build outward. So for me, in my experience, building a successful coaching business requires 3 things. It requires you to get valuable, and then you to get visible, and then you to get valued. Most people don't do it that way. Most people go the opposite. Most people focus on the bottom 2. They really want the third one. Valued means people pay you. You get valued enough, they see the value and they pay you. So most people are searching for, how do I get coaching clients? And then people are saying, well, the way to get coaching clients is to get visible. Do Pinterest, do Facebook, do YouTube, do a blog, do Google ads, whatever. These are the marketing components to get clients. But what if you're not valuable? What if you're marketing something that doesn't have value? Now, I'm not saying you as a person are not valuable. Every single one of us is valuable in so many ways. And most of us are taking for granted the ways that we are valuable. So I'm not saying that any of us are not actually valuable. But in the business setting, value is determined by the client, not by us. I see so many coaches, and I've been here many times in my own business going, wow, what I have is so valuable, but nobody's buying it. Well, then it ain't valuable. In their mind, it ain't valuable. The more value that we have, when we're not able to make it valuable from their perspective, the more frustration we have, the more frustrating it gets. And our knowledge and our value is useless if it never makes it into other people's hands because they can't use it. So we have to craft a message. We have to craft a story. We have to get certainty that I'll get into later. We have to get the body. We have to understand confidence. We have to create the magnet, the energy. There's so much more that we need to do in order for people to see the value that we can provide for them. It's not about Facebook ads and increasing your conversions. You can put as much money as you want out on Facebook. You can put You can hire the right experts that will get you all kinds of traffic and get you all kinds of people on your website and get you all kinds of people liking your page and get you this huge audience. But if you don't have something valuable to give them, none of that matters. And when it costs you money to do that stuff, now it's actually more dangerous. And see, here's the reality. Most people in the coaching business, their first 18 months is my second 18 months. That's what they experience. But they don't have the $300,000 to come down from. And let me also share something with you. Most of the 200 grand and the 140 grand in years 2 and 3 came from the work that we did in year 1. A lot of that was spillover. Those were private coaching clients that kept paying me to coach them off of the work that we did in 2007. So that generated probably closer to $500,000 in spillover money. But most coaches' first 18 months, whether it's actually 18 months on the calendar or 10 years and they do as much effort as I did in 18 months, or they go faster and they do it in 6 months, whatever it is. But from an action standpoint, most coaches' actions create the results that my second 18 months did, which is from here to there. Lose a lot of money, get a lot of frustration, question yourself, why would I be doing this? And see, when the unconscious mind is in a state of disruption like that and in a state of instability, what it tries to do is get stability again. It goes back to what's stable. And what's stable is whatever we knew before, a lot of us, financially especially. So when we create instability early on in our business, we are going to try to find stability. And most of the time, the mind convinces us that the way to get stable again is to stop doing this stupid thing that just created all the instability. Who do you think you are trying to be a coach? Who do you think you are trying to build a business? You're not as good as that person. Clearly, look at the results you've just created. So the mind hammers us and convinces us that we need more stability in our lives. And I would have done the same thing if those first 18 months would have been like my second 18 months were. But again, I was able to put the two recipes together and go, what did I do before that was successful that I forgot to keep doing or that I changed? So this first piece is the most important piece. But this is what most people are skipping over. The reason that, and that's why that's what's usually being sold in the market, is because the demand is not for how do I become more valuable. The demand is how do I become more visible and get valued? How do I get paid coaching clients? How do I market on social media? And so it's because the mind, the collective intellect of the market is demanding a solution to these bottom two. That's why most people are not selling, nor are most people experiencing this one with these two in mind. And that's what I learned when I fell in those second 18 months into bankruptcy. That's what I learned. So this is everything. This is the foundation. This is how you get sustainability. This is how you get the longevity. It's understanding value. And part of that is you knowing your value. You looking back into your past and going, wow, the things that I've learned are really valuable to somebody else. Now, for most of us, the things that we've learned are not valuable to us anymore because we're on to something else. We don't care about those lessons that we learned. We just consider those mistakes, or we have shame or guilt around those things. But we don't realize that the lessons that we learned along the way are immensely valuable to other people. Somebody out there right now is dying to hear your wisdom. And for some of you, they're literally dying to hear your wisdom. But if we play this game, how do I get visible and how do I make money before understanding this game, then we'll never get to those people. So value is really about you valuing yourself, you valuing and having confidence in your skill set, becoming competent in helping these people. So much so that you have the body to advocate for them. One of the reasons that I was successful and that I didn't quit along my journey is because of that piano bench experience. I was fundamentally transformed. Yes, Michelle Lane just said the lessons are the value. Right. We think the value is in our perfection. The value is in the lessons that came from the mistakes. That's where the actual value is, but most people don't have the guts to share their value for whatever reason, because they're afraid of people seeing them as less than perfect, or they haven't really understood their own value, whatever the case is. But the value really truly is in our imperfections. It's in our mistakes. It's in our mess ups. That's where we learn. We learn through adversity. We don't learn through success. Our most valuable lessons are always learned in adversity. And yet that's the thing that we don't want to let anybody know. And those are the things that we don't even want to admit to ourselves. We want to keep those hidden in the closet. Great. If you want to do that, that's fine. You just can't be valuable that way. Unless you want to teach just some kind of surface level, like how to tie your shoes. That's great too. I don't have any judgment around people that want to teach simple sort of mathematical processes. If you want to teach people how to remove viruses from computers, if you want to teach people how to follow some sort of scientific approach, that's totally fine. I don't really know that game because that's just not what I'm excited about. But if you want to teach some of the deeper work, some of the deeper stuff, if you want to get into transformation, not just skill teaching, if you want to get into transformation, you've got to get real and you've got to get valuable. There's so much on this that I just want to go so deep into. But back to my value, I had this transformational experience where I felt like I was a different person. And to this day, I'm driven by other people feeling what I felt on the piano bench. A lot of people never had that transformational experience, or they've forgotten it. That's where the fuel lies. The fuel lies when you are so committed to getting people to feel what you felt that you're going to overcome the intellectual challenges and obstacles, such as, I don't know how to put up a website, or I don't know how to create an opt-in page, or I don't know how to generate content, or I don't know how to write an article, or I don't know how to put videos up on YouTube. There are a million I don't know how-tos. A million. And then you'll find 10 million more once you get past those million. Your mind will generate an unlimited supply of I don't know how-tos. But when you're fueled by I have to, I have a soul's obligation to serve and to save, then you will overpower the I don't know how-tos. But when you don't have that experience, or you don't tap into that experience, the I don't know how-tos will consume you. They will overwhelm you. They will outweigh you. They will overpower you. And then all of the infinite amount of obstacles will stop you. But when you get to the place, or remember the place, or stay connected to the place where giving up is not an option, it's literally not an option, because you're so committed at a cellular level, then that kind of commitment that comes from your core, that comes from your heart, will power you through the head's fears and doubts and I don't know how-tos. That comes from you really taking a look at your value and what do other people value, and how can we package it in a way that they see the value. Then and only then should we get visible. Then and only then should we get visible? Let me take a quick poll, and I don't have any kind of poll platform here, so it's just going to be a verbal poll, and I want you to answer in the comment here. Thank you, Michelle. I appreciate that. Joanne, Failing Forward. Absolutely. Failing Forward by John Maxwell is the first book that I read in personal development that changed my life. Just that concept of failing forward. What I want to do is just check in with you guys. How many of you have some kind of resistance, fear, doubt around being in the spotlight, whether it's being on video, being on a big stage, speaking up in any platform whatsoever, podcast, anything at all? How many of you honestly have some kind of resistance toward that sort of spotlight, that kind of visibility? Judgment. People are afraid of messing up. People are afraid of failing. People are afraid of people seeing them. People are afraid of actually succeeding. People are afraid of telling stories because their family's going to hear the story. How many of you honestly, just say I do, how many of you have some resistance toward visibility? Perfect. Thank you for your answers, those of you that are answering. Most people do. Most people have a fear of visibility. Listen to how crazy this is. Not crazy. Listen to how sad this is. Perfect. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Serge, Charcy, Jordy, Michelle, Lisa, Chanel, Tanika, June, Manoj, Leah, Pamela, Katie. Let me ask a different question. Who doesn't? Okay, Dell doesn't. Might be interesting to ask. That's probably, it's going to be a shorter list, I'm sure. Who doesn't? Most people have a fear of going live on video. They have a fear of posting videos. They have a fear of something. I wouldn't say that I have a fear of it anymore, but I still, to this day, right before hitting go, whether it's a live video like this, it's even scarier to me, or I have more resistance of doing a static video. I much rather have live interaction than speaking into a camera. And so you should see the chaos, the emotional chaos that I generate a lot of times when it's time to just hit record on the camera. Nobody's watching. There's nobody that's going to judge me. I can just delete the video if I don't like it. But that actually generates more resistance for me than doing live videos. For some people, it's the opposite. Whatever it is for you is fine. But most of us have some kind of resistance to visibility. And maybe we have some kind of a ceiling like we're okay speaking to 10 or speaking to 20, but put us in front of 1,000 people, that's a whole different ballgame, right? So whatever it is for you, most of us have a fear of visibility. And yet, what are we searching for the answer to? How to get more visible. Even if you learn how to get more visible, but you're afraid of visibility, you're doing yourself a disservice. The reason you're doing yourself a disservice is because you might create experiences that your body remembers forever, and it decides that visibility is the last thing it ever wants to experience. Now, I'm not saying don't get in motion until you're totally, fully valuable, because none of us would ever get in motion if that was the case. You do have to learn in motion. But what most people are doing is they're trying to get too visible in certain platforms that they don't have the body for. They don't have the certainty for. Let me explain what I mean by they don't have the body for. Your body will determine your state of comfort. It will determine your state of mind. It will determine whether you generate certain emotions or not. It'll determine what thoughts go on in your head. So you might have the body for a certain environment. Like you might be able to give a speech to, let's say, 5 people, but you try to give the exact same speech, which you intellectually know cold, to 20 people, and all of a sudden your throat starts getting dry. You start forgetting some of the things you already know. You start getting super nervous. Your hands might start sweating. It's because you have the body for the 5-person presentation, but you don't have the body for the 12-person presentation. But the intellect is the exact same. The content is the exact same. What's really important for us to understand is our bodies are learning neurologically as we go through this entire journey called life, and our bodies are deciding what we are capable of or not. Our bodies are deciding when it will show up. You know, you might get yourself in a situation, your body's like, nope, I ain't coming. Nope. I'm not even going to give you access to that information that you just spent 5 hours memorizing. Watch this. Watch me lock that door. Boom. And have you ever had those experiences where you know exactly what to say, but you get into a certain situation and you just totally blank out? In that moment, your body is not with you. You are extending yourself beyond the capacity of your body. And what do we tend to do? We try to solve that problem with more intellect. That's not the solution. You already had all the intellect. That's not the solution. That's where our brains are actually dangerous when we put it in charge and when we listen to it too much. Because our brains tell us what we need intellectually, but our bodies don't get transformed. If your body doesn't get transformed, but your brain continues to swell with all this collection of evidence, or intellect rather, this collection of information, if your body stays here and your brain continues to move away from it with all this information that it collects, but your body still won't allow you to speak in front of 20 people, more intellect is not the problem. We've got to be aligned here, but most of us have an anchor at the neurological level where we will not allow ourselves to go any further than this one ceiling, but we don't know about it or we don't know how to do anything about it. Or if we do know about it and we know how to do anything about it, we're afraid to do it because of whatever decisions that we've made or whatever stories we're telling ourselves about that kind of work. But listen, if your intellect is here and your body is here, stop learning more stuff. Close the gap with the neurological shifts. Close the gap with removing the fears that are literally, biologically, neurologically lodged in your cells. Let's clear some of those fears away to get you closer. Let's increase the capacity of your body, not the capacity of your mind, because that's not the solution. So this is the work that gives us the true confidence and the certainty that we need to then be able to handle the visibility. So we all have a certain level of visibility that's beyond the capacity of our body right now. Most of us think that's where the answer is. Most of us think if we just knew how to do Facebook ads a little bit better, or if we just knew how to work Instagram a little bit better, if we just knew how to operate on social media, if we just knew how to do blog articles, if we just knew how to put our website together, if we just knew how to is not the answer. So the more that our brain is in charge searching for the solutions to the how-to deficit, the further away from the answer we're getting and the further away from confidence in that visible platform we're becoming. So we need to focus more on our bodies. Where are we confident now? Let's do some work moving forward, but let's do the work that we are confident with now while we continue leaning forward. That's the magic combination. And I hope this is landing for you the way it's making sense to me in my head. Because I don't want you to think that I'm saying you've got to solve all your problems before you get in motion. In fact, most of your problems can only be solved in motion. Most of this body work can only be solved in motion, as long as you're aware of it and you're doing the work with it. But just throwing several $1,000s into some kind of marketing campaign when you're not clear on what your value is and you don't know what they're going to value, that's dangerous. Here's one thing I never want you to do. I never want you to learn while money's on the line. I never want you to, I mean, you're always going to learn. So let me discern what I mean by that. I never want you to spend a bunch of money and try to figure out what people are going to buy. That's dangerous. Don't spend a bunch of money and try to figure out who you want to serve. That's dangerous. Unless you have the money to burn, then do it, because you'll learn quicker if you have the money to burn. But what most people are doing is they're actually spending money and they're trying to learn the variables while money is on the line, which increases the stress and increases the pressure, and it causes you to not learn the things that you got to learn because there's too much on the line. So one of the worst things we can do is spend money to get visible when we don't have the body for visibility. I kind of like the way that came out. I'll try to say that again. One of the worst things we can do is spend money on visibility when we don't have the body to be visible. Once we are clear in our value and we know what they want because we've studied the mind, we've studied the market, we've paid attention to what they're asking for. I'll get into this a little bit later, but I believe in the concept of, I think I created this concept. I've never heard anybody else talk about it in this way. I believe in the concept of finding your seeker, not your target market or your target clients. If you're looking for your target client, who's doing the movement here? It's like we're identifying somebody out there and then we're targeting them. But in reality, somebody is already out there seeking what you have. If it's not in their way, they won't find it. If it's only in your head, waiting to get released beyond all these traps of fears and doubts, if it's stuck inside the mental prison of your head, then it's not in their way, but they're seeking it. So what I'm a much bigger proponent of is get what your value is in the way of the people who are already seeking it. Don't try to take a river and try to change the current. Go with the current. There are already people seeking something. Give it to them. But you have to understand who they are. You have to understand where they are energetically, where they are in their journey, where they are physically, where they are online. You have to understand where they are. The most valuable piece of information that you'll ever have in your business is your seeker's perspective. That's going to be the most valuable piece of information. Not your skill set, not your stories, not your websites, none of that stuff. Your seeker's perspective. When you know what they're afraid of, when you know what they're desperately seeking, when you know what they would write a blank check for, when you know what they've tried that hasn't worked, when you know what they've tried that has worked, when you know who they trust, when you know who they don't trust, when you know what they cry themselves to sleep at night thinking and wondering and being afraid of, that's how you can serve them the most. But that takes effort. That's how you get valuable to that person. Understanding them so much so that you feed them what they're hungry for. Don't teach what you want to teach. Serve what they want to learn. That's a game-changing concept because it's a complete 180 shift. And most people are going, I want to teach this. Great. As long as people want to learn that. If they don't want to learn that, then it doesn't matter how life-changing this content is that you want to teach. It's useless until it gets into their heads. So we have to understand what they're actually wanting to learn, not what we're wanting to teach. That's value. Then we can get visible, and then you won't be able to stop the rush of people coming after you. You won't be able to. To a lot of people, this seems like you're going really slow because there's so many stories out there of making $30,000 in a weekend or $100,000 in a few months. I mean, I've told you my story, made over $300,000 in our first 18 months, but almost all of it was in the final 10 months of that time. And even the majority of it was in the final 8 months of that time. So I spent 8 to 10 months working like crazy, go, committed, 15, 16-hour days, full time, trying this, trying that, doing all of this work. And then it hit. And when it hit, it exploded. Most people are trying to get it to explode without putting in the work, without creating the foundation. And then even if it does explode and you don't have the foundation, it's all going to come crashing down. So it might seem to some people who are being driven by their intellect that it takes too much time to learn your value. It takes too much time to write your story. It takes too much time to interview people about what they want. It takes too much time to research the market. Okay, great. I know people who started this game 12 years ago, and you know where they are? They're still in the it takes too much time boat. All they've been doing is chasing quick solutions slowly. So my invitation to you is to do it foundationally. That doesn't mean that it's going to take you 10 months. It might take you 2 months. It might take you 10 days. It might take you 2 years. I don't know. And I would never do you a disservice by trying to promise what your journey is going to look like. I don't know. I can just help with the internal game for you, that, you know, whatever's needed in whatever area of your life or your body or your intellect and your market and your product. I can just help you with what's needed for you to try to find that clicking point and to stay committed and to stay focused and to stay in advocacy of that seeker. So when you do it the right way and you find that clicking point and it's foundational, once you start to get valued, that's when it explodes. I will never promise details or timelines or any of that sort of stuff because I don't know. I don't know how committed people are. One of the things I get frustrated with in the coaching market is that so many people are promising outcomes that are literally unknowable. How to get 5 clients in a month. Really? How do you know who I am? How do you know my clients? How do you know that I'm so broken inside that all I need to do is learn how to catch my breath for the next 3 weeks? How do you know that I can get 5 clients in the next month? So I think it's borderline fraudulent when we make claims like that in an industry that's based on an individual person. I think it's bullshit. But that's what the intellect is searching for. That's why the majority of the products on the shelf are selling it. It's because they're serving the intellect's demand for it. And this is marketing in general. This isn't just coaching. This is our society, right? Take this pill so it can just burn the fat while you sleep and eat the cake. Really? That sounds fantastic. That pill will sell for $9 billion collectively, right? So the intellect is seeking the wrong solutions because it's asking the wrong questions. And the more that we chase the quick fix solutions, the further away from the truth we're going to pull ourselves, and the slower it's all going to go, and the harder it's going to be. I promise you that. But what I also promise you is if you do the work that needs to be done, your journey will be faster, it will be more enjoyable, and it'll be more valuable to everybody. And sometimes people don't like to hear this because it sounds like, you know, I'm the buzzkill. I'm the buzzkill telling the truth. And let me say this, if you don't do this and you succeed, more power to you. Don't pay attention to anything that I have to say. You and I are just different animals. That's totally fine. Different animals have different diets and they have different habitats. So if you've succeeded with a lot of those things that I never succeeded with, more power to you. Please send me an email and let me know how it all worked so that I can maybe learn something from it too. I genuinely don't have this battle inside of me about what the right way to do it is. because we're all so extremely different. But I will be real and I will tell you what my truth is. And what I know, what I believe is that every template works for somebody, but most templates won't work for everybody. Because you're not in the template. You weren't the one that the template was created for. I'm kind of skipping into some of the content that are behind these pages, but while I'm in the flow, let me speak to this. One of the things that we have to understand about the coaching industry specifically is that a lot of successful coaches are vendors to the industry. And what I mean by that is, if you imagine this gigantic playing field, on the playing field are the coaches that want to teach and coach and serve normal people, right? That's the playing field. Imagine this huge coliseum. We've got all these coaches on the field. And then we've got a lot of coaches in the stands teaching those coaches how to be successful coaches. So these coaches in the stands are actually vendors to the industry. They're teaching the coaches to coach. And for anybody that works for, more power to you. I got love for you. Where I'm coming from is this awareness you have to understand. If you learn marketing from a marketer who teaches marketing to other marketers, but you want to teach couples how to be happy in their relationship, how's that going to work? What works for the marketer teaching marketing to marketers is not necessarily going to work to the life coach teaching happiness to couples. These are like apples and school buses. They're not even this. They're not even the same thing. Not even close to the same thing. But so many coaches in this industry never became successful until they started teaching coaches how to become successful. So many coaches never made money until they taught coaches how to make money, teaching coaches how to make money. It's like incest. It's sickening. Now, if that works, it works. If that's what you do and you're successful and you're happy, that's fine. The only reason I bring this up is because there's so many people going, why doesn't this work for me? Here's why it doesn't work for you. You're not a marketer teaching marketing to marketers. That's why you can't follow that template. There are elements in that template that you can absolutely follow, but please don't follow the exact same template. I had a guy one time who was so excited, young kid, wanted to teach awareness to parents about their depressed children. He wanted to teach parents how to know when their kids are depressed, when they don't see signs of depression, because he used to be one of those kids who was depressed behind closed doors, and his parents didn't know what to look for. And he was suicidal, and his parents never knew that. So the things that his parents were saying to the suicidal mind was actually dangerous and it caused him to want to commit suicide even more. Wanted to kill himself because the things that they were saying wasn't landing the right way to the suicidal mind. So he had this amazing content, so incredibly valuable, life-changing content. And as a parent, I was going, my God, all parents need to know this. And he's like, yeah, I'm going to do this big old launch, and I'm going to hit the online market just like this 7-figure template that I just learned. And I was like, dude, please don't. Please don't. You're teaching parents. You're not teaching online marketers. So he was trying to determine what the tripwire was going to be. What was the $7 report that the parents would buy? And then after the $7 report, what was the $97 upsell that they would buy that would deliver some online program? And then out of that online program, what was the $500 live event that he could get them to go to? And then out of that, what was the $4,000 mastermind that he could get them to go to? And I'm going, bro, you're talking to parents. Parents ain't buying a $7 tripwire, 3-page PDFs, and they're not upselling into an online program to learn about parenting. And they're sure as hell not going to a live event. One of the scariest things to parents is to decide that they suck as parents. It's tough to sell to parents. You think a bunch of parents are going to pay $500 to go to an event, regardless of what the title is? The title might as well be how to be a shitty parent because you suck if you're at this event. I was like, come on, man, you can't sell to parents that way. And he was creating different tiers for the online program. One tier would be $200 and the other tier would be $400 and the third tier would be, dude, stop. Would you stop? But he had loads of money, tons of money from his family. He put all this energy, all this money into the marketing and didn't sell a single thing. Not a single thing. This is the 7-figure template. The 7-figure template that doesn't work with parents because it's a different seeker, seeking different information, wanting to eat it in a different way, in different environments. That's why. You can't sell hospital beds to hotels. They're not interested in hospital beds. So you can learn the template that the hospital bed person used to sell hospital beds to all the hospitals. But if you're selling to hotels, that template is useless. So I'm not trying to throw shade at anybody. I'm not trying to take the validity away from anything that's out there that's working. But I see so many coaches who are frustrated because the templates aren't working for them. That's because if one variable changes in the recipe, the whole thing might not work. And there are two massive variables that need to be taken into consideration in your recipe. One of them is you. And the second one is your seeker. If you're different than that person, selling to a different seeker than that person, then that recipe will not work as is. Elements might, but as is, no way. So I want you to understand what's necessary to build a foundational business starting from you, and then we can build the structure around you. Don't think the value's in the structure. It's not. It's not in the proven strategies. That's not where the value is. It's not in where to put your website videos. It's not in where to put your articles. It's in the value. I don't know if you could tell, I have some opinions about this stuff. I don't think I ever called the coaching market incestuous before. But it's like a pyramid. And I'm not saying everybody in the coaching market is doing this, but a lot of the visible people that we see are teaching how to teach coaches how to make money. And again, if it works, it works. God love you, God love them. I'm not summarily judging anybody or anything. I'm just trying to highlight some of the biggest challenges mentally that are out there when things aren't working, when they should have worked. They worked for somebody, but you're not somebody. So what we see, what's visible a lot of times are the vendors. And so we don't know what else is out there because our mind is searching for the vendors. Our mind loves the vendors. Our mind thinks those are the solutions. That's what our mind thinks. So we keep searching for the vendors. We keep thinking that we're not good enough as we are until we learn how to sell, till we learn social media, till we learn this, until we learn that. And we just stay in this perpetual story of I'm not good enough as I am until somebody comes and saves me. So what we have to know is that behind the stands, there are people who are really super valuable that might be your answers. If they're not your answers, they could be your tribe of people who are walking similar journeys as you are. And that's where your value actually comes from, underneath the stands. And we, as coaches doing our work, we need to know that there's value under those stands also. Because there are people that are going to be served underneath that. And we have to believe that those are two different forms of value. It's not that you've got to do it a certain visible way or nothing. It's you can do it that way if that matches your market and your product, or you can do it this way if your people are below the stands. Are they walking on the pier, or are they walking under the pier? If you ever gone under a pier, it's super dark and cold under there. Like, that's not the sexy place to be. We want to be above, and we want to be in the sun, and we want to be able to see everything. But most of us are actually below the pier. So we have to know that we have value, and we don't have to look like the people we are looking at. We don't have to become the people that we see that are visible. Unless it fits and unless it works, then please, by all means, go for it. I don't have a dog in the fight about the conversation of what's right. Here's my definition of right. Is it working for you? Great. Keep doing that. Is it not working for you? No? Okay, then that's not right. Let's look at why it's not working for you. That's what this whole conversation is about. Not raging and hating and throwing shade and judging what's out there. Just if it's not working for you, we need to look at the ingredients. We need to look at the recipe. We need to look at the chef. All right, hopefully this is landing well for you guys and not pissing any of you off. Or whatever. So, valuable, visible, and valued. And the most important piece of this whole thing, I'm going to write it in red so you can see it even more. Hopefully this red works. Oh, this is not a very good pen. It's more orange than red. How do you like the sound of that pen? Certainty. Certainty is everything. Certainty is in your body. When you are certain that you have the capacity to serve, or you have the knowledge of that person, when you know what's in the mind of your seeker, that kind of certainty is incredibly attractive. See, if you know what's in my mind, if you start talking about things that I've been thinking about, I believe you get me. And if I believe you get me, then I will also believe that you can help me. But if you're talking about things that really don't resonate with me, you're not using the same words, you're not using the same concepts, you're not answering the same questions that I'm asking, I don't think you get me. And if you don't get me, I don't know that I trust you to serve me or to help me. So if I could boil all of marketing down to two things that will make you valuable and make you successful, two things that your seeker needs to know. They need to know you get me, and they need to know you got me. So as a coach, that's the message. I get you, and I got you. I get you. I understand you. I understand because I was you. I was on that same path. I understand what's in your mind, and I got you. I know how to help you take these steps, whatever that is. I get you and I got you is the clicking point from a certainty standpoint. Dell says, right, you will sound like a seller. I'm not sure exactly what you mean by that. I'm not necessarily saying you say that, by the way. That's the energy that people need to know. They need to know you understand me, and therefore you can help me. So I don't know if that's what you're referring to, Dell. If you want to clarify, I'll certainly respond. So that's marketing. That's how to be a full-time coach from a conceptual, foundational standpoint. The next one, and not all of them are going to be this long, I promise. The next one is this six-figure conversation. I already told you about how I was making $200,000 in the business and then $140,000 in the business the next year, and we filed bankruptcy because the business couldn't contain itself. There was no money to keep it afloat. I certainly wasn't making any money. So if you really want to, well, let me see. I'm turned off when guys sound like they're trying to sell me. Yeah, I agree. Now I don't know if you were thinking that's what I was portraying or that's what I was saying, but I agree with you there. And I'll talk about expectations versus experiences later, and I think it'll speak to exactly what you're saying. Turned off when we think we're being sold. Absolutely. So, six-figure income. When I was, let me try to catch my thought because I pulled off of it to go to the chat box. When I was making all the money, I wasn't keeping anything because I didn't have the business structure and I didn't understand finances, and it's really because I didn't value the money. I didn't value the personal income. I valued the sexy stories. Yeah, talking about the people who don't get you. I totally agree. You know, it's interesting. If we think somebody gets us, we will have so much less sales resistance when they're offering some kind of program for us than if we think they don't get us. We'll actually have a little bit more or a lot more sales resistance. And when we as a coach know that we understand that person, we will be able to sell much more authentically with more power, not force, but more power and more attraction when we know that we know that we know who they are and what they need and that we can help them. So it's solved both ways. Maybe not solved is the answer, but one of the ways to solve our fear of sales, if there is any fear of sales, is to know the client so well and to know your value so well and to have so much certainty that you're going to bring it when it comes to you advocating for them to do something, buy something, join something that's going to change their life. But when we don't really know if they're getting it, when we don't really know if this is going to work, when we don't really know who they are, man, that resistance internally is embarrassing. And I've done that many times. So I know in my body what that's like. And then that misalignment internally will be repulsive to them. And the results are usually going to be horrible. Or if we have like, you know, some kind of persuasion tactics that we're using or something like that, we might get people to buy, but we'll have a lot more refunds. That's another thing that a lot of us don't understand about marketing in general in this industry as well. You can make $1 million, but what if 400,000 of it gets refunded? And unfortunately, that's actually not a very uncommon story. A lot of the hype that's generated in marketing in general, but in this industry specifically, around like those big launches and the cart's closing in 4 hours, and if you buy my thing, I'm going to give you $19,000 worth of bonuses to buy this $2,000 product. The market's tired of that. And what happens, though, is a lot of people get sold the fear of missing out. They get sold the urgency. They're afraid. The mind goes, whoa, look at all this intellectual information that we need. And the mind buys a lot of these programs based on the urgency that's created. But when you buy something inside of urgency based on your brain, there's a much better chance that you're going to buy something you don't want. And when you finally calm down and you sober up and you realize this isn't what I thought it was, or you get into the program and you realize it doesn't match what they were selling it as, or you realize that this actually doesn't solve the problems that you have, then there's more of a chance that you're going to either never finish it or you're going to ask for a refund. So anytime that we use these high pressure sales tactics, it might generate the more sexy results on the front end. But trust me, it sucks to refund all these people. Like, I would rather sell $5,000 and refund nobody than sell $20,000 and refund 10. Even though I made twice as much, giving 10 back hurts more than making and keeping 5. Trust me on that. So when we understand what this kind of connection really truly is, and we feel more advocacy and we start getting money coming in and all that stuff, we have to employ some business strategy. And that's where the mind is actually really good. This is not a perpetual conflict of one versus the other, the mind versus the heart. The mind is good. It just needs to stay in certain offices. Right? The mind needs to stay in its lane, and the heart needs to drive the bus. The heart needs to fuel the bus, rather. The mind can drive in certain areas, but the heart needs to fuel. So there are components of building a business that are really important for us to understand, but most of us don't know those things because we're coaches. I didn't come out of Wharton Business School or any other business program to learn how to build a business, and then I chose coaching as my product. I was never a business guy. I never wanted to be in business. I just wanted to help people change their lives like Matt helped me change my life on the piano bench. And then I had to back into learning these business strategies and skills. So most coaches are coming from a place of wanting to help people. That we're not coming from a place of wanting to build a business. So the business strategies need to be learned. And it really truly is a different muscle than the desire to help people change their lives. But if we don't learn how to use that muscle, then we can't actually build a business that's able to sustain growth and that's able to create leverage and that's able to give us more impact in the world. So we have to learn these business strategies, but it's more of the icing than the cake. And then when we learn how those structures work, now we can start to elevate in our impact on the world. And it took me years to figure that stuff out. And there are certain things that I'm still trying to figure out because, you know, I'm in chapter 11 of this journey. And I've learned chapters 1 through 10, but I still have other stuff to learn. And a lot of coaches are struggling with that, or they learn the business things, but they haven't created the cake yet. And so the business structure doesn't have anything to stand on. But the bottom line is, if you are serious about actually building a business that's sustainable, then those are different skills that we have to learn and that we have to be non-negotiable with. And one of them is income. So much of this is so much of this, these concepts are really about being driven by your heart, but then keeping it all together with your head and with these strategies, right? And if you really want to have a high income business, and by income, I'm talking about personal income. I'm talking about the salary. If you want to have that, then it has to be built into the game plan. It has to be built into the strategy. And so the first thing is to know the difference. The first thing is to know the difference between salary and income, gross income. Because a lot of what we try to do, a lot of what I tried to chase for the longest time, or those sexy numbers, right? $300,000 in money coming in 2007. Yep. 320 going out. That's not a business. I'd rather have 40 and keep 10. Because the more money that you have coming in and the less room that you have, the more danger that you're actually operating with. You have way too much exposure, way too much to lose, right? If your foundation is shaky, would you rather have a 1-story hut or a 100-story skyscraper? If that comes down, it's going to come down a lot harder. So we want to create the foundation. And you're not generally, unless you just have this gigantic cash fund and you're going to, get funded right away, you're not generally going to create a high salary. You have to build it up. But you've got to start foundationally. What I did is I thought, even though I didn't give it a whole lot of conscious and strategic thought, I thought that once I can make $100,000, then I'll start paying myself money. And then once I got to $100,000, I realized I don't have any money to pay myself. So maybe I need to make it to $200,000. And then when I got to $200,000, I still don't have the money to pay myself, because the systems that didn't have the money to pay at $100,000, they're not going to have the money to pay at $200,000 either. And they wouldn't have the money to pay at $500,000. If you just expand the broken systems, you're going to have more brokenness and just more exposure. So we've got to start with some level of the structure that you want later on. And so my advice to all of you, wherever you are in business, is to make sure that you're paying yourself a salary if there's any kind of consistent income coming in, or at least a percentage of the money that's coming in, as best you can. And the reason that this is important is because it sets a boundary that becomes a non-negotiable. Now you might say, well, I don't have, I just spent $5,000 to invest into the business and coaches or whatever you invested in, and I only got $1,000 back. I can't pay myself any money out of that. Yes, you can, and you should. Because if you wait till you get to the $5,000 so that you can pay all that stuff back, then you might be building a system that cannot sustain itself, and every business has a bunch of expenses. So what I would much prefer you do is get used to, when money comes in, I get some of it. When money comes in, my family gets some of it if you have a family. When money comes in, my personal account gets some of it, even if I have a lot of debt on top of it. When money comes in, you have to think with the end in mind. If you want to pay yourself off of $100,000 in the future, then you got to pay yourself off your first $1,000. And it might not be a lot. It might be you bring $1,000 in your first client and you put $100 into your personal account. That's better than telling yourself, I got to make up the $5,000 before I can start paying myself, because what you just put in motion becomes a precedent. And that precedent for me didn't get changed for about 4 years. Till my accountant finally said, listen, you need a salary. We need to get you set up with paychecks. There needs to be a salary coming in so you know that this expense is there. If you don't know that this expense is there, then you won't plan for that expense. And that's where I was trapped in my business for a long time, is I wasn't non-negotiable with that expense, so I didn't have any reason to continue going, or I didn't understand that this is a part of the business, this thing called salary. So what I highly suggest all of you do is, when money comes in, take a percentage of it and put it in your personal account, not in the business account. Don't put it into an account that you can draw from, because you're setting in motion a precedent. And over time, you can start to raise that when you learn how to create more profit and you get more net income and all that. You can learn how to raise it. But you have to start with this structure in place if you want that to grow. It's incredibly difficult to grow a business over the course of 6 months, a year, 2 years, 5 years, and then change the structure of the business. It's easier to start with a certain structure and then start to expand those structures. So this is one of those structures in business that are important. And it's important to your ego too. It's important to your mind to go, I'm putting all this work in. We just had money come in. I want to be rewarded. I spent 4 years without getting almost any rewards in my business. We were pulling money out and paying bills when we had to. Most of the time, I was just pulling money out of my equity in the house, which wasn't smart. But I wasn't getting any rewards. And we operate on short-term validation. But if we tell ourselves, as soon as we build a business to $100,000, or we build it for a year, we build it to 50, or we build it to $1 million, whatever that goal is long-term, as soon as we do that, then we will get rewarded. The unconscious mind does not like long-term rewards, where it has to keep working and struggling and staying with it. And then sometime later on in the future, I might get some sort of reward. It's really difficult to keep the momentum going when so much of this business is dependent on your inspiration. It's tough to build a business that's dependent on inspiration when you're not inspiring yourself with the rewards of doing good work. So think of the long term in mind and start with the structures, even if the percentages are lower than you want, so that you can expand them in the future. I think the first salary we paid, I don't remember the numbers, but I think the first salary we paid ourselves was like $60,000 or so, like about 4 years in. We just started to pay 60 grand. And then I got used to that being an expense of the company. That was a non-negotiable expense. And that doesn't mean that there weren't times when I didn't pay myself. There were times when I didn't pay myself, but it always became this non-negotiable expense. And we started to operate more like a business than a hobby. And what a lot of coaches are doing is we're operating like hobbies. We're operating like this part-time job on the side where money comes in, but we don't have an entity and we don't have a separate bank account. You're not going to be able to grow very much like that if you want a business. Now, if that's all you want, that's fine. But if you want a business, we've got to start creating the foundation for a business. And so I think the first salary we started with was maybe 60 grand, and then we increased it to 80 and 100 and 120. And last year we increased it to more. We increased it to 180. And now it is a non-negotiable part of the business. And if I know that it's non-negotiable in the business, well, then I'm going to have a bigger fire under my butt to generate the income that is required in the company to handle all of its expenses, not just my salary, but all of its expenses. Other people's salary, I have employees and independent contractors and so forth. So we need to treat these expenses as non-negotiables so that we know what money is going out when the money comes in. If you don't have a business mindset, and I didn't have it for the longest time, and I still have way more to learn, but if you don't have the business mindset, it feels like with the employee mindset is you get paid a certain amount of money, the government keeps some of it, and then you get to use everything you get paid. That's not how a business works, right? There are so many things that are non-negotiable that need to come out of that money. And in reality, what's left over for reinvesting into the business and reinvesting or covering salaries and things like that is a relatively small percentage compared to what we think it is if we don't have that business mindset. Now, you don't have to get an office like we got. You don't necessarily have to pay for a lot of the platforms that we pay for. So I'm not saying that you have to have a business that has $30,000, $40,000 of monthly expenses, but you have to know the expenses and you have to set in motion the precedent that you want to expand. So know the difference between that personal income and business income, the salary. I already talked about business structure, I already talked about business mindset. (2018) and beyond, we've already hit on a few of these things out of order. But let me represent them and say a few more about what I think is going to happen in the market. Now, I'm not some market fortune teller guy, but I know this market. I mean, as well as I know it. It doesn't matter if I know it better than anybody else, but I've been in it for 12 years, and I've been studying it, and my livelihood depends on it. I've been a full-time coach. I was never a part-time coach. I've been a full-time coach for 12 years. And so my family's livelihood depends on it, which means I study this market. I have a lot invested into it, and I've got a lot of exposure in the success or failure of this business. And so I've studied a lot, and if I look at what's happened over these 12 years that I've been in this market and where I think things are going and what's happening just in the world in general, then there are some things that we need to know. Because the way to be a full-time coach in 2018 is not the same as it was 10 years ago. It's not the same as it was 5 years ago. For all kinds of reasons. And one of the biggest reasons is that people have fundamentally changed behavior patterns. People are not the same as they were 25 years ago before the internet. And they're not the same as they were 10 years ago before social media. And they're not the same from a buying perspective as they were 5 years ago before social media marketing became such a huge thing. And so social media is changing the way humans behave. It's changing the way the brain thinks. It's changing desires that we have. And so the way to attract people pre-social media marketing is not the same as now. And if you try to just follow the trends, but you're behind the trends, then you can't succeed. So if you learn how to market in social media, but you don't implement it until the social media platforms have changed, then you're always going to be behind the curve. You're always going to be behind the front lines. And the world is changing so fast that you can't afford to be behind the curve. You're going to be caught up in the undertow, and it's going to spit you out. Now, the good news is you don't have to play the social media marketing game. But even if you don't play the social media marketing game, you have to understand that the animals that we are trying to serve are in that social media marketing mindset. So regardless of whether we're putting our products and services and programs on social media for them to buy, we have to understand who they are, and they have been changed fundamentally by social media and by marketing in general. And all these shifts are gaining speed. The world is growing exponentially when it comes to technology. So we just need to understand this. You can't serve the same food to animals who've evolved beyond where they were when you learned that recipe and then created that kind of sandwich and then tried to, give it to them. They're well beyond that one now. Has to be different. So the good news, though, is we can fall back to concepts that are fundamental and still attract people and still connect with people if we don't play this kind of rat race sort of game. If we don't try to compete with all the other people that are selling social media marketing, or all the other people that are selling a certain way, or people that are selling to different people than you want to sell to or you want to serve, then we can still grab people, but we have to understand how they've been programmed. So our market is changing. And one of the things that's happening in our market is that people are tired of the pressure sales. They're tired of the pressure launches. They're tired of the fake scarcity and the false urgency. They're tired of that stuff. They're tired of buying things and then being disappointed in what they bought, or being shameful that they bought it, or trying to implement it and it not working. People are tired of that whole process, because what's been happening for a long time now is that we've been buying expectations. People are selling expectations. We buy the program or the product or the person, and then we expect certain things to happen. So we have been buying the expectations before we actually experience the program or the product. That's the way it's been working for a long time. And that's the way to get the mind to buy something, is sell it a bunch of expectations based on how much deficit it has. You suck at I'm role playing here. You suck at coaching because you don't know how to sell. Buy my How to Sell course, and then you won't suck at coaching anymore. Well, the mind hates sucking at things, so the mind thinks, okay, that makes sense. Let me buy this thing that will fill my deficit, and then you get it and you implement it, and either it doesn't work or it does work, but you still don't have the body to sell the programs because you haven't become valuable and you don't have the certainty, so now we're still disappointed. There's just so many ways to get disappointed when we buy expectations. Yet that's what the market is demanding. So I want to be very clear. Marketers, salespeople are not the problem in any way, shape, or form. The only reason that products ever get sold is because the market demands those products. If the market demanded something else, then different products would get sold and different things would stop being sold. So we have to understand, what is the market demanding and what is the market expecting and what is the market tired of? Well, I believe that the market is getting tired of buying expectations based on what it needs to know and then not having a solid, powerful experience. So they're starting to not buy the expectations, and worse than that for all of us to know as business owners, they're starting to not trust anymore. Because they've bought and then been disappointed, and then they bought and then been disappointed, and they bought again and then they've been disappointed again. The more that we become disappointed in an expectation, the less trust we have for the next thing that shows up that looks like that same thing that disappointed us. And so our market doesn't trust the marketing or the marketers very much anymore. And that trust is eroding, it's going down. So what we have to do is we have to gain their trust again. And one of the ways that we gain their trust is we don't sell them expectations, we give them experiences before they have to put a lot of investment in. Now, that doesn't mean everything has to be free. It could be some low level of investment. And it doesn't always have to be money that we're talking about in investing, because there are three main things you invest: time, energy, money. But we have to give people experiences and then offer them to continue the experience. I'm not going to sell you an expectation and then hopefully you'll like the experience anymore. We're done with that. I'm going to give you an experience before you have a lot to risk. And if you like the experience, I'm going to invite you to continue the experience. Once you trust me, now I can invite you into something based on trust and based on experience and based on a neurological knowing. They already know they like this thing because they've experienced it. So what we have to do to survive going forward in a market that doesn't trust marketers anymore is we have to stop showing up like the old forms of marketing, and we have to give them experiences before expectations. When we give them experiences before expectations, they will purchase, and they will purchase high tickets. It's not like we have to change what we're offering. We just have to change the process of selling and meet them where they are a little bit more. Now, the good news about this is when you have the body for it, when you have the certainty, when you have the value, it's so much easier to give them experiences. Because you're going to be coming from a different place and you're going to be meeting them with a different language and speaking to a different piece of them. And then it will be easier for them to trust what they've experienced rather than trusting what they expect. Because they've already done that. They're tired of it. Is this landing for you? This is relatively new awareness for me over the last, I'd say, 6 to 8 months, where it really crystallized about where this market is going and what we need to do in order to stay relevant and in order to stay successful. So my bold prediction for not just the coaching industry, but industries in general, all of marketing, my bold prediction is the people who are not willing to go back and get the trust of the market are going to become obsolete. Big name companies, big name brands that have been successful for a long time will become obsolete unless and until they regain the trust of the people who are buying their products. And history is full of giant companies that end up going out of business because they become obsolete in the market. Look at Blockbuster. Blockbuster had full dominance in the movie market. And Netflix came along and they gave the people what they wanted. They brought not only the movies to them, but they brought the movies they wanted to them. I actually heard a story recently, not too long ago, that I thought was really interesting. When Netflix started to go online, Blockbuster was aware of it, and Blockbuster had some of those same ideas as well. Of course, everybody knows you got to move online. And Blockbuster actually had a lot more resources. They had a lot more employees. They already had a lot more customers. They had this massive brand that they had built. And so they had a lot more muscle in the online video world than Netflix did. But Blockbuster, I don't know, this is just what I heard. And whether it's factually true with some of the details with Blockbuster and Netflix is not the point. The concepts are absolutely important for us to understand. But what I heard that I thought made a lot of sense, and it would make sense as to why Blockbuster ended up going out of business, is that Blockbuster put a lot of their muscle into providing the platforms and the movies and give people access and so forth. But Netflix gave people what they wanted. Blockbuster actually had a lot more titles early on, a lot more movies and a lot more options for people. But Netflix had the options that people wanted. And Netflix started to pay attention to the movies that people were watching or the shows they were watching, and then make suggestions based on their buying pattern. In other words, I get you. Oh, you like family movies? Here, since you liked Cinderella, you probably will go for some of the other cartoon movies, some of the other princess movies. So let me put Beauty and the Beast in front of you. Let me put a little Mickey Mouse in front of you. Let me put some of these other things in front of you because you just bought something like that. Well, Blockbuster didn't do that, or they didn't do it in the right ways. And when they learned that they needed to do it, Netflix already had a hold of people. People trusted the brand of Netflix, and they already had an experience with Netflix, so that even when Blockbuster tried to put all of its muscle into regaining a market competitive place in the market, Netflix had already swarmed them. And now Blockbuster's gone. Blockbuster's out of business. Even though they had more muscle, they had more customers, they had a bigger brand, they had everything. And so this is where the market is going. You watch a YouTube video and you're going to get suggested videos based on the video you just watched. This is what people expect now. You need to know what I want, and you need to put in front of me what I want. People are demanding that the market comes to them. Otherwise, they're not going to go to the market. They're not going to go out there and search libraries anymore. They're going to jump on the internet and make the libraries come to them. So the companies that don't make that move will become obsolete. And in the coaching market, I believe in the next few years, the whole market will change to where there won't even be any of those kinds of sales tactics like big pressure launches anymore, because they will stop working. And when they stop working, people have to change or they will become obsolete and they will go out of business. So for those of us that understand that, it's actually a really good sign. We can start building classrooms to give people experiences rather than compete with the salespeople on the front lines in the social media marketing game, because that's a dangerous game. There's a lot of blood in that water. This second one right here, Blue Ocean Strategies, a book that I highly recommend. The whole concept of the book is, instead of competing with people, create something where there's no competition. Instead of going into the battle of outperforming other people or competing in price or competing in brand or competing against other people, which creates a lot of red water because there's so much blood in the water. Like, we have to compete against all these people and the competitors are bleeding. Instead of competing in the bloody waters, create something where there is no competition. And that's the blue ocean. And then invite people into this blue ocean where you really truly are the only one in that ocean, that people, when they start to learn about you and then they start to refer you and start to invite their friends in here, you're the only available resource for them. Now, that's not, I don't want you to think that you really truly have to be the only one. This is more of a concept than actual reality, because the reality is there are no unique thoughts that I think a human mind is ever going to have. All the thoughts that we have already been had. We just might think of them differently. We might language them differently. We might have different applications, or we might have different experiences. But the concepts are not going to be unique anymore. So I don't want you to think that you have to be the only person selling this thing. But the concept is, go where there's less competition so that you can feel better about what you're doing, and not, take a plastic knife into a machine gun fight. The people that are competing on the front lines in the marketing world, those are hired guns. Those are people that get paid thousands and thousands of dollars, and they look at every single detail. They try to change a 20.3% conversion to a 20.5% conversion, because a 0.2% conversion increase when there's $100,000 going into the machine gives a heck of a lot of money out on the back end. These are hired guns that are specialized in competing in sales and marketing and social media. You can't compete there. I can't compete there. So don't try to compete against hired guns. They'll beat us every time. Don't try to outmarket the marketers who are professional marketers. Be the teacher. And the good news is, the way to be a blue ocean option for people is simple. Be you. Because there really hasn't been anybody just like you with your strategies. That's one of the reasons why you shouldn't follow those templates, because those templates are red ocean templates. Those are proven to succeed in the red ocean. And you don't want to be there anyway. So when you show up as yourself, this embodied, fully expressed version of yourself as much as you can, and tell your stories and teach and serve your seeker, then it's going to be so much easier to be distinct. And in the new market, distinction is going to be more valuable than better. It's not about you being better than another coach, or you being better than another program, or your thing being better than anything. When you're different, the mind will start to assign more value to different. Why? Because it's tired of what it's already experienced. If it sees something that's similar to what it's already experienced, it doesn't matter if it's a better version. It doesn't want it. It's not interested in it. So you can spend all this time explaining to me that this is a better version of the thing that already irritated you. Why would I want that? I want a new thing. So when we are distinct in the market by being authentic, then the market will value us more. Different is better than better going forward. Different also gives you more certainty because you can be certain in who you are and what you have in your own journey. And it's so much easier than to try to be a watered down version of somebody else. That's not what the market needs anyway. The market needs you. The planet needs your knowledge, not your version of somebody else's knowledge. So that's what I think is going to happen in the new world, in the new market of coaching. We got to change. We got to create trust. And let me expand on this thing that I just said a moment ago. It's to be yourself. The way to create trust a long time ago was to have a bunch of accolades, have letters behind your name. And then social media hit based on the internet that came 15, 20 years before that. And then in the early phases of online, the way to create trust is to impress people with your visibility, to impress them with the website, to impress them with the wrapping paper. That's how we created trust several years ago. You could impress me with your image. I've never really crystallized this, but here's, I think, the three evolutions here. You used to be able to impress me with your accolades, and then you were able to impress me with your image. But neither one of those work anymore because I'm tired of it. If I don't trust the people that I've been buying from, then image doesn't matter to me anymore. In fact, the nicer the image, the more I will distrust it. Because I've been taken advantage of or I've been disappointed by the people whose images were flawless. In the new world, you're only going to get my trust when you show me your humanity. You're only going to get my trust when you show me your flaws, when you show me your authenticity. Because I've been burned by people who were impressing me with the things that they've done or who they are. Now I want to know that you're real. That's what the market is going to demand going forward. So if you don't have the guts to be authentic, people won't trust you. And if they don't trust you, they're not going to buy from you. I believe authenticity will be a form of currency in the new market. Who do I trust because I feel like I know them? Not who do I trust because they impress me with the website that they put up or they impress me with the things that they did a long time ago. Who cares? And because there's been 20 plus years of online experience and 10 plus years of social media and really 5 plus years of hyper social media, all the scams that used to come through the mail are now coming in our inbox, and they're now coming on the TVs, and they're now showing up on our phones. So we've all been exposed to a lot more scams, which is causing us to reduce our trust in anything that we see. So the market is immediately thinking that we're fake and that we're false. Even if it's not an intentional judgment that they have, the market is immediately feeling that we're fake and we're false because we are there. Because we exist, we can't be trusted. If we show up the same ways that the market has seen in the past. So we have to be real so that we can be distinct, and then we have to be authentic so we can get trust. And now they will step into us and have the experiences, and then we can invite them further down the journey with us. Please tell me this is landing. Oh boy, the inner game. The inner game is everything. Not everything, just almost everything. The inner game is what causes coaches to fail. It's what causes coaches to succeed. And I've heard some version of this question so many times. You know, if we had to boil it down, what's the single thing that causes coaches to succeed or fail? And after all the things that I've studied and all the experience that I've had, I really truly believe that the thing that separates people who succeed from people who fail in this industry, I think this applies to anything really, but in this industry specifically, is the pre-decision to succeed. If you haven't decided that you're going to succeed, then everything is up for grabs. It's like the jury's out. Is this going to work or is it not going to work? And when you haven't decided that it's going to work, then everything you put out there will have a hesitancy to it. You're going to put out there and then see if you are going to work, or if this business is going to work, or if it's worth your time. So there's going to be some form of hesitancy as long as you haven't completely thrown your butt over the bar. But when you pre-decide something's going to work, then when you try something, if it doesn't work the way you hoped it would work, that's just a pivot point. That's not a contemplation point of whether you should keep doing this or not. And as elementary as that might sound, and as small of a tweak as that might actually be, it's everything. When you're wondering if you're going to be good enough, when you're wondering if you're going to be able to sell, when you're wondering when you're behind the if, you haven't fully, completely committed 100% unconditionally. You're only committing if the if is fulfilled, which is conditional. But when you fully, unconditionally commit that this is what's going to happen, I will succeed regardless, because I want to give the people the neurological experience that I felt, and I have a soul's commitment to share this with people. When you have that kind of commitment first, then you can learn the things that need to be learned along the way in motion, and you can just adjust to whatever pivots need to be made. But if you don't have that mindset, you're going to be scared to risk loss. You're going to be scared to risk loss of money. You're going to be scared to risk loss of judgment. You're going to be scared to risk loss of customers. You're going to be scared to risk. And you cannot succeed in business with a fear of risk, because business cannot live without risk. It's a necessary component in this game. You cannot ever know the unknown, which is the future. So if you're not willing to risk, you cannot take the unconditionally committed actions that are going to generate success. So most people actually have not fully 100% unconditionally committed that they will succeed, and now they just need to look at the details. They're just exploring what details are going to show up and what choices they're going to make this success happen. But success is not the option. Success or failure is not the option. That's not what we're trying to decide on. It's how will we succeed? And as much as that seems like it's an intellectual choice, it's more of a neurological choice. It's more of an all-in from your body choice than an intellectual choice. Because if you ask almost anybody, have you decided to succeed? Of course we're going to say yes. We've been deciding to succeed intellectually for as long as we can remember. But interestingly enough, we decide to succeed intellectually, yet we don't neurologically succeed. That's because there's disconnect between our neurological experiences and our intellectual knowledge. Serge says, what if significant others are risk averse? Oh, that's a juicy one. Then you need to have a conversation. And as long as you're not fully committed, then anybody else, such as wives or husbands or anybody else that has some kind of significant impact on you, and they might have some kind of control over finances or whatever, if you're not unconditionally committed, they will pick up on that. And if they are risk averse, they're going to have more reasons to find the evidence as to why you're not doing it right, or you should quit, or why this isn't the right decision. And I'll give you an example of that. I told you earlier on, those of you that were here, oh, by the way, the record that I heard, not the record for YouTube lives in general, but the record for this kind of a YouTube live was 2.5 hours, and we just passed it. So I didn't tell you guys earlier that I had a record that I was going for, but now I'll tell you that we passed it. Let me read what Condor just said. Call the Vikings, burn the boat strategy. So if you haven't heard that story, I don't know the reality of it or the details of it, but the story is basically this army shows up for a certain battle, and the commander of the army burned the boats behind him. So retreat was literally not an option, and this outmanned and outgunned army won the battle because they had burned the bridges or they had burned the boats. That's the concept, and that is a part of going all in. Retreat is not an option. But now, if you do have significant others, sometimes you just have to let them go. If they fill a certain role in your life that is dispensable, or at least that is dispensable in this particular journey. Now, you can still stay married with somebody, to somebody, but not be a business partner with them. We can release our significant others from certain roles in what we want to do with our lives and still stay connected. That is possible. If it's not possible, well, then that's a different conversation. And for some relationships, I mean, this is just the reality. For some relationships, we need to have a deal-breaking conversation. At some point, this might be a deal breaker for you. And that's a completely different conversation than how do I show up more fully committed so that they see the shift in me. So I told you, for those of you that heard my story earlier on, for about 4 years after I had quit being a teacher, I was fumbling around with network marketing and different sales positions, and I was trying to build a promotional products business, and I was burning up all of our resources. I was lighting on fire all of the money that we had in the bank that we had spent a lot of time and energy creating and then saving. And then I got a bunch more debt. I got more mortgages on the house and second mortgages and all kinds of credit cards and all kinds of lines of credit and all that stuff. And after a while, I felt my wife's support starting to shift. She was always super supportive. Yes, quit your job, chase your dreams, let's go do all this stuff. You know, we were young and we had just had one baby and we didn't have a lot of life experiences about things not working and so forth. So we were like, yeah, let's go. There's nothing that can hold us back. So she was so supportive of me making a lot of these choices. But I'll tell you what, after 4 years of me making promises that I couldn't fulfill or that I just didn't fulfill, and me continually basically telling her, we got to keep doing this, we got to keep doing this, you got to keep letting me do this, and you know, just believe in me, believe in me. After a while, even though she supported me unconditionally as a person, after a while it was like, hey, you know what, I love all of that, and we're now a couple $100,000 in debt, so like something needs to change. And I felt energetically that there was less support. And there really truly was, from a language standpoint, a little bit less support, because after years and years of it, she couldn't get behind a lot of the lies that I had been telling. And they weren't lies when I told them intentionally, but they were lies in the fact that I didn't follow through with them. And now I keep trying to sell her all these lies. And then I had the 2005 experience that I was telling you about. And then my whole life shifted. And her support totally changed as well. Because she saw a different me come out. And because she saw a different me come out, she was more supportive. Even before the money was coming in, she was more supportive of me doing that, which lights me up. And she also knew that I was a better version of me in our marriage and in our house when I was lit up. So she saw something come out of me that she experienced in a different way, and she started to tell me to go do this work. I missed my son's first birthday party to go do a live event. And when I talked to my wife about it, I said, you know, this live event was supposed to be 80 people, and she just told me it was like 9. So, and it was on my son Exley's first birthday party. And so I was like, I'm not going to go up there anymore. It was supposed to be 80 and we were going to make a bunch of money, but now with 9, it doesn't make any sense. So I'm just going to stay here and be here for X's first birthday party. Because I thought I was going to feel guilty and all that stuff. And she said, basically, I don't know that she said these words, but she said, shut up. Somebody up there needs you. And you're going to go change somebody's life up there. I say up there because it was in Canada. Somebody up there needs you, and you're going to go change somebody's life. Go do that event. He's won. He doesn't know when his birthday is anyway. We'll celebrate after you come back. And so she pushed me out the door to do this work when I was lit up, even when these family obligations were on the line. And the level of support that she has for me now and has all of this time is more of a function, in my opinion, of what's coming out of me than it is what I'm bringing back home to her. In fact, when I wasn't bringing back home anything to her, and we ended up filing bankruptcy, and because of the choices I made, she suffered financially. Even though I caused a lot of those things for her, she was still my biggest cheerleader because of what was coming out of me. So I can only speak to my experience as it relates to these kinds of shifts in a marriage. And my wife and I have been married 20 years now. We just celebrated our 20th anniversary in Paris. We have 2 kids, 16-year-old daughter and an almost 13-year-old son. 12-year-old now, will be 13 next month. So we've built this business while growing this family and while evolving into this 20-year marriage. So I can't tell you the things to say to get your spouse to support you or to get them to no longer be risk averse, because there's so many gradients in this conversation based on your connection, based on your communication already, based on your level of value, based on your level of conviction, based on your level of commitment. But for some people, they have to decide that they don't need anybody else's support, including their spouses, but they're also not going to make that a deal breaker in the marriage. Like, you cannot support me, that's fine, but I have to do this for me. And I didn't marry you with the expectation that you were going to support me, and you didn't marry me with the expectation that I wasn't going to go build a business. So our marriage is not on the line, but I have to do this. I have to do this for me because my soul is dying if I don't. That's a different conversation than, honey, can I use another $1,000 from the family fund to go spend money on something that I don't know is going to work? Hey, I don't know that I would say yes to that either. So there's so much in this conversation that it would take me 100 hours to give you all the different possibilities. And it would be a huge disservice to tell you this is what you say. But I can tell you that so much of it is based on your energy first, and then having clear conversation about what it is that you're committed to. And also make sure that this is a dual co-created dream as much as possible. Now, my wife is no longer involved in this business hardly at all. And pretty soon she'll be completely gone. in this business. But for the first 8 years, she was my only business partner at the company level. We had a few employees, but she was my only business partner. And then we had people that came in more at the strategic level. But about a year and a half ago, she said, this isn't what makes me happy. I don't want to do this anymore. I just want to be married to you. I don't want to be business partners with you. And so now she is almost completely out of this, but that doesn't change my commitment to this, our commitment together in the business, or her support of me, even though she's no longer physically in this office, nor is she in this business. So there's so many different variables to assess and to explore. My invitation for all of you is to get personalized attention. Hire a private coach. Do some kind of consultation with somebody that can put you under the microscope. So if I were with you on the phone, I could ask you questions like, what does her risk aversion actually sound like? Sometimes we are projecting our fears and what we think they are thinking into their heads, and they're not even thinking it. Or they're thinking it, but it's nowhere near the intensity that we think it is. And usually it's because we're afraid of guilt or shame, or we don't have the capacity or the body to take the risk. And so we think that they are operating the same way. Or a lot of times we have somebody that's a convenient, safe, and sexy excuse for why we are not throwing our butt over the bar. I've had that show up sometimes too when we start to explore the actual relationship. But if we think our wives or our husbands are the reason that we can't win, then we have a safe excuse. And sometimes we're so scared of losing that excuse that we don't even explore the idea or explore the conversation that might get them back in alignment, or realize that they always were in alignment, or realize they don't care about the risks you take anyway, as long as certain boundaries are upheld. I've seen every piece of this spectrum show up when we actually get into the relationships, and then depending on where you are in the spectrum, that's going to determine what the answer is. So I know I didn't give you a specific answer, which your mind was absolutely wanting, because I can't. And if I did, I would be doing you a huge disservice by saying, here, do this. Because I don't know your wife. I don't know where you are in your journey. I don't even know if I know you. I know some guy's named Serge, but I don't even know if I know you. So there's so many variables to take into account, especially when it comes to relationships. Yeah, lack of certainty. Anything that you have a lack of certainty in tends to be exaggerated in the relationship. And it's exaggerated tenfold at minimum, usually, right? So we can only always, in my opinion, we always should start here, and we can only really check in with ourselves, and then we take our personal assessment into the relationship and have a conversation based on what we find in those two things. Oh, there's so much more that we can dive into, but I won't for now. I will get into more relationship teaching in a coaching context and in the context of building a coaching business with a relationship that we're talking about now. But I'll save some of those for later videos. Yes, you're absolutely welcome, and thank you very much for the answer, because this is the stuff. This is the stuff that actually holds people back. It's the personal stuff. It's the body. It's the inner game. It's the relationships. It's how do I build a business when I'm being taught how to get visible and how to go do all these live events, but I got 5 kids at home. Those are the conflicts that actually hold people back. And unless those conflicts are addressed, if that's the anchor that's keeping your boat stuck in the harbor, it doesn't matter how good you get at driving your boat. That anchor needs to be addressed. And that's the real stuff. That's why I say the inner game is almost everything. That's the real stuff that causes us to succeed or fail. We have to take a look at our limiting beliefs. We have to take a look at our relationship with money. We have to take a look at our relationship with success. We have to take a look at our religious beliefs. How do they conflict with success, with this industry? We have to take a look at our body. We have to take a look at our relationships, our parenting. And just because you have kids doesn't mean you operate the same way as somebody else who has kids. Some people might not want to build a business because they want to spend time with their kids. Some people might want to build a business to get away from their kids. So just because 2 people have 5 kids doesn't mean that their solutions are going to be the same thing. We are so different as animals. And if we are the thing that's fueling the boat, then we have to take personal assessment and start here. If we have conflicts internally, those conflicts need to be solved before we can build something that is going to be sustainable long term. Now, the inner game is not sexy. It doesn't match what the mind is searching for. It doesn't match the 3-step process, the 3-step proven process, turnkey system that will clear all of your inner game fears and doubts and limiting beliefs. 3 steps, proven. Really? You can't see, but below the camera, I've got my middle finger out. Really? I'm 12 years into this game, and I don't know what the 3-step process is to clear my doubts and fears, because they were just kicked up tremendously today as I was getting ready for this. You can't. There is no content out there that appeals to the brain, the intellect, that will heal the conflicts that are in our inner game neurology. So as long as we're using this to search for our solutions, we are not ever going to solve what really, truly is the conflict. But that's not what people want. That's what we need. Now, that doesn't mean it has to be super emotional or it has to be traumatic or you got to cry a bunch of tears. It doesn't mean that's what it has to be like. It might. But here's what I know. If healing whatever conflicts you have internally is really difficult, then building a business with all of that unhealed stuff would have never worked anyway. Or if it did work, when it came crashing down, the pain will be way worse than if we just look at what's actually there now anyway. So whatever needs to be done for the work you want to do, do it. Whatever needs to be done, whatever needs to be looked at, look at. We got to figure out where the anchor actually is for each and every one of us so that we can lift the anchor up that will then allow us to be okay with visibility, allow us to sell, allow us to market, allow us to do the things that are required elements of this process called being successful in business that most people are afraid of because of the internal conflicts. So the inner game is vast. Several things that I've talked about make the inner game way easier. When you come from a place of service, when you throw your butt over the bar, when you pre-decide to succeed, when you're more committed to helping people than you are avoiding judgment and failure, the inner game becomes so much easier. I promise you. But what we need is what I call neurotransformation. We have to transform our neurology. I don't think a breakthrough exists unless the neurology has been transformed. If it does exist, it only exists in the intellect, and an intellectual breakthrough will never move the needle significantly for you. The intellectual breakthrough is the top of the iceberg. The neurological breakthrough is the bottom of the iceberg, and I think most of us have probably seen that image of the iceberg where almost all of it is below the water. That's a neurological breakthrough. That is a neurotransformation. My brand of coaching is called neurotransformational coaching because if we don't change our neurology, we cannot make significant shifts in our lives. Our intellect can can convince us that we can go do it, but then we will fall back to where our body resides. Robert says monks spend decades to accomplish enlightenment. Right. It takes whatever it takes. It takes however long it's going to take. It takes whatever energy it's going to take. It takes whatever effort it's going to take. That's just what it's going to take. And if you really adopt this idea that your body will determine where you have certainty, then the question becomes, do I have the body to attract a client? And if you have no clients right now, then the answer is no, you don't have it. If you don't have the body to attract the clients, you don't need sales scripts. You need the body. And once you get the body to attract the clients, then whatever that next level is that you're trying to go to, you assess the same way. Now, do I have the client? Do I have the body to generate $100,000 in my business? No? Okay, I got to get the body for it. Now, do I have the body to hire a team? Now, do I have the body to do whatever it is that you're wanting to do? Do I have the body for it? If I don't have the body for it, I need to get the body for it. I don't. And here's what won't give you the body for it: wanting it more, crying about it more, searching for more intellectual solutions. None of those things will give you the body for it. You got to do whatever work needs to be done. That's keeping the anchor where it is for you individually. And what works for me won't necessarily work for you. That's why we have to do this with support. We have to put ourselves under the microscope because we are the product. We are the image. It's our face that's on the website. It's our livelihood that's providing the value that's in the program or the product that we're putting online to sell. We are selling ourselves. When we are the product and we are the program and we are the brand and we are the message and we are the delivery and we are the business, it's a different game than just trying to sell a widget to somebody. It is a whole different game. So coaching is such an intimate journey. We have to start with the intimacy called ourselves. And then once we do that work, it's actually incredibly and exponentially faster to build success once we do that work. So that's what neurotransformation is. We've got to clean up values conflicts that we have, maybe between family or money or success. We got to clean up belief conflicts that we have. And we got to clean up neuro conflicts that we have. Those are the three main types of conflicts that we have to clean up. None of them are intellectual conflicts. None of them are intellectual deficits. They're not. I'm not saying that stuff is unimportant. It's just nowhere near the most important, but most people think it is, and that's where they spend all their time, trying to solve 5% of the game. You can make the top of that iceberg look as pretty as you want. If the bottom of the iceberg doesn't have what it needs to take you where you want to go, the top doesn't matter. Three more concepts here in the inner game. Perfectionism, it's just going to kill you. I'm not going to go deep into this. I think we all know this intellectually. But perfectionism actually causes more distance between you and the people that you're trying to serve. In other words, if you show up perfect, they will trust you less. You got to show up effective. The further you go past effective, the more distance you're creating and difference between you and them. People don't trust perfection anymore because nobody thinks they are perfect. And so how can I trust you if I'm not perfect? How can I trust that you understand me and you're like me if you are perfect? So not only does perfectionism shut us down emotionally, because we're just constantly searching for the right answer, But it actually does us a disservice in business when we're selling coaching that depends on trust. So the better you are, the more perfect you are, the more perfect you are, the less valuable you will be. You can bet your life on that. The more perfect you are, the less valuable you will be in today's world. In 1978, yep, get perfect, impress them with your accolades. Not in 2018 and not any time beyond. We will never go back. Technology has changed human behavior forever in a way that it will never go back. And if trust is the new currency, and that currency is created with authenticity, then perfection will kill you. Because unless you're authentically perfect, and I haven't met a person yet who's authentically perfect. So if you believe what I'm saying and you believe that authenticity is how to generate trust, then stop trying to be perfect. Perfection or connection? Yeah, I love that. I know one of your favorite quotes, Michelle, is that we have more connection in our imperfections than we do in our perfection. Be real. Nobody expects you to not make any mistakes anymore. Nobody expects you to have this super clean past. You'll get more trust when you tell people about all the dumb stuff that you've said. I'll share some of them on this list. I don't know if you can see any of those on the list, but I'll share some of them in a little bit. But when you're holding on to perfection because you think that's what creates value, you're getting it wrong. So you're fighting a game that can't be won, and even if you did win the game, you'd realize that game is irrelevant. So why fight an irrelevant game? There's no reason to try to be perfect when perfection will do you more damage anyway. And I know there's safety in perfection. That's why the head craves it. The head craves perfection because there's no risk in perfection. But there's also a lot of safe excuses inside of perfectionism as well. Because if you have to be perfect before you take action and you know you're never going to be perfect, then you know you're never going to take action. And if you know you're never going to take action, then you'll never fail. That's what the brain is trying to convince you of, because the brain is more committed to you not failing than it is to you being happy. The unconscious mind is more committed to not experiencing rejection than it is to experiencing joy. So you have to pick who you're going to serve. Your brain, which is afraid of rejection, or your heart, which is afraid of regret. Pick one. Dancing with doubt. I've already alluded to this. The name of this game is not getting rid of doubt. The name of the game is to just understand where doubt comes from. Doubt comes from you trying things that are beyond your current comfort zone. That's where doubt comes from. Don't try to get rid of doubt. Don't think that the fact that you have doubts in your head are going to mean that you shouldn't take action. If that were the case, I would have to give everything back that I've ever done in this industry. I told you a little bit ago that my doubts today, because I was going to do this, something that I haven't done before, launch a YouTube channel and commit to weekly videos. I haven't done that before. I'm not afraid of putting videos up. I'm not afraid of doing videos. I'm not afraid of being authentic. I'm not afraid of telling the stories, but I've never done this. And because I've never done this, my doubts were raging on me today. And look at my... Here's part of my bio. I've been doing this for 12 years. I've made $5 million in this industry. I've put $1 million into my personal bank account over the course of that time. I've published over 150 articles. I've got 300 plus audio products. I've got 1,000 plus videos. I've spoken all over the world. I did a 2.5-week tour in India, all on me, all for me. I've been on Every major market. I've been on stage in front of tons and tons of people. I've won North America's Next Greatest Speaker program. And you know what my doubts were telling me today? You are such a freaking loser. Don't think that you can fool these people. They will find out. And when they find out, they're all going to leave because they'll know how much of a loser you are. Don't do this. You're fake. Everything that you've experienced is fake. So just keep hiding. That's where you're safe. Keep hiding. I'm telling you guys, that's what was going in my head, honestly, an hour before we went live here. And I have a pretty damn good track record. I have nothing but evidence in my past that I'm valuable, that people will pay money. People have paid $50,000 to coach with me. And those doubts still exist. I'm only saying this so that you know that if you have the doubts and if you have the struggles and if you have the limiting beliefs, that means you're human. It doesn't mean you can't do this. It doesn't mean you're not valuable. It means you're human. Keep going. Don't think you're ever going to get rid of those doubts. I don't know anybody who's gotten rid of those doubts. Anybody. And I know a lot of the biggest, most successful people in this industry. I don't know anybody who's gotten rid of these doubts. So you can't think that that's one of the conditions of success. You just have to learn to dance with it. You have to learn to act anyway. Your brain will rage on you telling you you shouldn't do it. Awesome. The only reason it does is because you're about to impress yourself with something that you didn't think you were capable of doing. That's all those doubts are confirmation of, that you're about to move into territory that you were meant for. That's the only reason your brain would be afraid enough to create these doubts. It's confirmation that you're going in the right direction. It's not confirmation that you should stop. And it makes me sad to think how many people have given up on their purpose, on their soul's commitment, because their head screams really loud at them. And how many people give up on that because they think that that's a bad thing, when in reality, it's the right thing. If anybody tells me that they don't have any doubts and fears, that's when I'm concerned, because I think they're a psychopath. Only psychopaths don't have those kinds of doubts and fears when it's time to show up and tell people that you can help them change their life in some way, shape, or form. You are a normal, functioning human being if that scares the crap out of you. Or at least it kicks up all kinds of doubts and fears. Your brain is functioning normally because your brain's job is to keep you safe. And as long as it thinks that anything beyond the current boundaries of your comfort zone is potentially unsafe, then your brain is doing its job when it scares you to try to keep you where you are. It's doing its job. Your brain's job is not to encourage you to go after it. Your brain's job is not to cheerlead for you. Your brain's job is not to whisper in your ear, keep going, I think you can do this. Your brain's job is to tell you that you're a piece of shit. Your brain's job is to tell you you can't do this. Your brain's job is to tell you that you cannot live up to everybody else that you're comparing yourself to. Your brain's job is to catastrophize the future and tell you that you're going to lose money and tell you that you're going to lose people and tell you that you're going to metaphorically, emotionally, spiritually, neurologically, literally, biologically die if you do this. That's your brain's job. So don't get concerned when it does your job. Get concerned when it's quiet. That's what scares me. When the doubts are quiet. Because it means I'm not trying. And if I'm not doing enough to scare my brain because I'm about to move beyond my comfort zone, then my heart is not getting served. So this is the dance that we've got to take, that we've got to enter into. The dance with our humanity. You know, when we're expecting ourselves to be perfect, when we're expecting ourselves to not have fears, when we're expecting ourselves to not have doubts, when we're expecting ourselves to do everything right that we try to do, we are expecting ourselves to not be human. When in reality, the most value is in our humanity. And the most joy is in our humanity. So don't try to move away from and avoid the thing that's going to give us the biggest gift on this walk called life, and that's going to give us the most value, which is in the deepest, darkest areas and corners of our humanity. Don't run from that, run into that. That's what it actually takes, in my experience. That's what it takes. Turn inward to yourself. Take a look at the identities that are raging on you. Take a look at the beliefs that tell you you can't do it. Take a look at the fears. Take a look at all the experiences. Take a look at all the reasons why your head is telling you you can't. And if you really just use a different lens, you'll see those are actually all the reasons why you're valuable and why you must. That's what I want you to know the most about what this inner game is really about. And one of the ways, from an activity standpoint, that you can shift your mind is by doing what I call book a room. Get yourself in motion. Get yourself committed. The reason my event happened on February 15th, 2006 is because 90 days before that, in November of 2005, my coach had me book the room. And as soon as the room at the Hyatt Westlake was booked for February 15th, 2006, and I had money on the line, and there was a title and there was an actual thing, my brain shifted into a different mode because February 15th, 2006 was happening. As long as we're in the place of, I don't know if this is happening or not, then we're not fully 100% committed. So sometimes that strategy and that philosophy means literally book the room. Book a room at a hotel. Get it in motion. If you're writing a book, sometimes that means get the cover made. I'm getting ready to publish and launch a book in the next few months about this father-daughter relationship. This book has been written over 4 years, but I never got into this publishing action for all kinds of reasons, and it doesn't matter that I try to psychoanalyze myself right now, but the point is that's relevant to this conversation is about, I'd say 7 months ago, the first step that I took was I looked at one of my friends' books, Nicole Montez, I don't know if she's on, and I was like, your cover is awesome. And she goes, oh yeah, I did it with this lady. And so I engaged that lady in a conversation, and she goes, yeah, I could do your book cover too. And she did a first mock-up draft of my book cover. And as soon as the book cover was done, not done, but as soon as I saw an image of it, that book is getting published now. And then I hired somebody to help me publish the book, and then I hired the editor, and I just sent back to him round 2 of the edits. I don't think any of that would have happened unless my cover was done. So for a lot of authors, you have to give yourself something visual before you actually feel like you're committed to it, that you've jumped in the water. There's a difference when you're at the edge of the water, wondering what the temperature is, and wondering how it's going to feel if you jump in, and wondering how deep it is, and wondering if you can swim when you get into the water. That's different than jumping in the water, because once you're in, the temperature is what it is, and it's as deep as it is, and the current is exactly what it is. And now the only thing your brain is asking is, how can I swim? Not should I jump in or not, it's how do I swim, because I'm already in. That kind of accountability to something that scares you is important, because if it really truly scares you, then a lot of times we'll just keep pushing it further and further and further away. And we have to book a room and say, this is happening, for our brain to go, okay, now that it's happening, I'm going to switch into a different mode. I'm bummed. I want to engage with all the comments, but now I'd have to go all the way back up and try to follow along, because I haven't been following for a long time. So if you wrote some stuff in there, I'm not ignoring you. I'm not seeing most of them. I'm just seeing some of them when I glance over there. So the last thing I want to share with you are the mistakes. And I'm not going to go too deep into this. I'm sure I'm going to do videos on mistakes to avoid and stuff like that. But I just want to share a few mistakes with you that I've made. And here's why I'm proud of this list. I'm not proud of the list because I overcame the mistakes. I'm not proud of the list other than for any other reason than I was in enough action to make these mistakes. That's why I'm proud of this list. Because there's some shameful things that I'm about to share with you. But I was in enough motion to make the mistakes. If you're afraid to make the mistakes, the only way to not make mistakes is don't take action. But if that's the only thing you can do to be successful, then the only way to not make mistakes is to not be successful. Your brain loves that idea. That's what it's been trying to convince you all this time. Finally, you get it. Don't take action. And then we don't have to deal with any of these mistakes. We don't have to worry about all the potential catastrophes that might happen. Finally, you get it. That's what your brain has been trying to get you to understand for the longest time, because your brain doesn't want a list of mistakes. But if you're more committed to avoiding the list of mistakes, all those people who need you, who are dying to hear from you, will never experience your wisdom. And that's a bigger mistake than anything that's going to show up on this list. So, and some of these aren't necessarily mistakes as much as they were just painful experiences. My first sales attempt was awful. Oh my goodness. It was at that event, How to Maximize Your Athletic Ability, that I told you about if you were here at the beginning. Oh my gosh, it was painful. I actually have it on video. I don't know if I can play the video, if I can find the video, but it was filmed. I've never looked at the video. But it was so awful. I was so scared. I sold private coaching to a room full of high school and college athletes and a room full of Mary Kay women who had no interest. Because I had no interest in what I was saying. I didn't have the body for it. I didn't have the language for it. But I'll tell you what, because I had the guts for it, because I had enough courage to try, my second sales attempt was a little less awful. It was still bad, but it was a little less awful. And then my third one was only horrible. And then my fourth one was less horrible. And then my fifth one was only terrible. And then my sixth one was only bad. And then my seventh one was not so bad. And then my eighth one was decent. And then my ninth one was good, right? Most of us are waiting until we get good. It's like you're demanding of yourself to learn all the lessons of steps 1 through 8 before you jump to step 9. Allow yourself to be god-awful, embarrassingly bad, so that a year from now, 2 years from now, 5 years from now, you might actually be good. But if you're afraid of being bad first, and you're always going to be bad compared to what you're going to become. So you might not be bad compared to me or compared to somebody else, but you're always going to be bad compared to better. And you're always going to be better if you stay in the game. So don't demand of yourself to get better before you get into motion with bad. That was awful. Second one, bankruptcy. I've talked to you about bankruptcy. If you didn't hear that story and you're interested in hearing that story in more detail, listen to the first part of this. But I was really shameful of that for a long time. So after I filed bankruptcy, it was about 2 years, I think, before I told anybody about it. And then I finally had the guts at an event in North Carolina to tell people that I had filed bankruptcy. I was scared to admit that I was a life coach teaching people how to be successful, and I had filed bankruptcy. But as soon as I said that I filed bankruptcy, I felt so much better. It was like I finally let it out. I didn't have to hide this thing anymore. And somebody came up after me. Now, I was afraid of filing bankruptcy, of admitting I filed bankruptcy, because I was afraid of people judging me. And it happened. Somebody at the event, they didn't tell me at the event, but they wrote in later. They were like, you so turned me off when you said you filed bankruptcy. I'm trying to be successful. How can I be successful from somebody who filed bankruptcy? And they're like, I'm never doing anything with you again. Great. But somebody came up to me afterwards and said, I trust you because you filed bankruptcy, because I'm in that conversation right now. And because you did it and you're now on the other side of it, I think you can help me go through it or help me try to avoid it. But I want to hire you as a coach. So somebody judged me hard and then left for the same reason that somebody hired me. And it was because I was willing to show them my humanity and show them my reality. So usually the things that we're afraid of admitting to people are the things that some people actually need to hear to then hire you. But of course, it's backwards if we're trying to keep that stuff from them and just play this intellectual game and get coaching clients. You're hiding the very thing that's going to get you the coaching clients. But that's not an easy journey, to admit some of that stuff or to look back and see where the value is. The third one is, I had a guy, one of my very first Facebook ads campaigns went up, and a guy, the only comment on this post was, oh yeah, here's the snake oil salesman. This guy's trying to sell us something and it's stupid. And that really hurt. That really bothered me. So the mistake that I made was to take it personal. And I wanted to fire back at him. And this was only a few years ago. This wasn't like, my earlier version of angry-filled Sean. This is a few years ago, and I wanted to fire back at him and tell him that he's a piece of crap and go away and you're probably a loser and blah, blah, blah. I ended up just saying, hey, this isn't for everybody. I apologize if that's the way it landed for you. I wish you well, all my love. But that's what my brain was afraid of, is being judged as a snake oil salesman. And that's why I didn't want to do these Facebook ads and get visible. But once that happened to me, I realized, that's the way he saw it. And he probably got burned by somebody else who might have looked just like me, selling things that I was trying to sell. And his judgment of me actually has nothing to do with me, because he doesn't know me. His judgment of me has to do with his past that I just reminded him of, which is true for everybody. People's judgment of you has nothing to do with you. It has to do with what you remind them of from their past. But if we don't have the guts to trigger some of those judgments, then we'll never have the guts to get visible, which is the only way that we're going to be successful. The fourth one is probably my favorite one. And if you have been reading that and wondering if that's actually what it says, porn links, like pornography. So for about 2 months, maybe even longer than that, I'd say 2 or 3 years ago, I was sending people to porn sites. And what happened was I sent out a newsletter. And by the way, this is in the Mary Kay world. And if you know anything about the Mary Kay world, it's a pretty spiritual community. Let's just say this is not what they're about, right? And this is certainly not the way I ever showed up, for them. I wasn't even on the edge in any way. And I had this newsletter that was going out to the Mary Kay world. And somebody texted me, somebody that I knew and was friends, and she was a client of mine. She's like, I just clicked on your link, and it took me to the site that I don't think you want it to take us to. And I go, oh, really? What site did it go to? And then she told me what site, and I was like, well, and I freaked out, and I pulled up my computer and I clicked on all the links, and it took them where they were supposed to go, which was the blog. And I was like, well, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, the links are correct. I don't know. I mean, maybe there's a cookie on your end or something, or maybe people are looking up porn on your computer. Like, I don't know what to tell you, but it's not our issue. And then I sent out another newsletter the next week, and the same person said, yeah, it's still going to that site. And then I got another couple people that are saying it's going to that site. I went back to my computer again, looked at everything. Nope, it's not going to that site. I don't understand. But now I started paying attention because more people are saying it. So I started to look into it. It turns out that there was this virus that only worked on mobile. The reason I was never seeing it is because I was on my computer. But when people would click the links, any link, it didn't matter what the link was, because the virus was actually on my site, on my website. It was a redirect link, this virus. So anybody that was on mobile, they would try to go to my site. This virus would redirect them, and it was taking them to this porn site. And it wasn't just a porn site. It was like a violent pornography site. So you got women who are getting this email that says, click this link here, and you'll learn how to clear your personal fears and 3 ways for you to get more confidence. And they would click it, and they'd be like, oh! Right? So I had my web guy go in there and clean up everything, and he's like, okay, it's good. And I sent out a message, and I said, I apologize so much. We had some virus, and some of you were seeing this site that I wish you wouldn't have seen, and I don't endorse that stuff, and that's not my intention. I really apologize. Now, in the meantime, I'm having people unsubscribe left and right, as you could imagine. So I'm trying to solve this problem, obviously. And my web guy says, okay, it's totally clean. There's no more viruses on the page. You're good. And so I send out an email that says, hey, I really apologize. We got it all cleaned up here. This is the link that I wanted you to go to before. So go ahead and click this link. They click the link, violent porn site. So I asked my web guy, what's going on? He says, it's gone. I don't understand. The virus is gone. So anyway, this virus was like a very sophisticated virus. So he had cleaned it up from one of my sites, but it was on one of the other pages that was still on my domain hosting account. And so what would happen is people would go to this site, and the virus would still come get them. And it didn't look like the virus was on the page anymore. So the web guy didn't understand what was going on. And each time he would go in, then he would see something like remnants of the virus, and then he would clean that up. And then I would apologize again and send out another email, click violent porn. So for like 2 months, we couldn't figure this thing out. It cost me thousands of dollars to finally find somebody that knew what the heck was going on. We had to slam all of our sites. We had to clean everything out. We had to let go, like just remove a lot of our pages. I mean, I was in this crazy state of mind. Like, I needed to solve this problem. Obviously, people are unsubscribing left and right. I don't know how much damage I'm doing to my reputation and all that stuff. Finally, a couple months later, we figured it out. Somebody actually knew what this new strain of virus was, and we cleaned it out, and I switched hosting accounts. And it's honestly cost me, no lie, like $5,000 to $7,000 over the last couple of years because of that, because of the protection that we had to put on and the money that I spent and blah, blah, blah. Thankfully, I don't think anybody's being redirected to porn sites. But I'm proud of that story because I had enough of a community to get pissed off. I had enough things to share to get taken over by a virus and to have this happen in the first place. So I don't like what happened, but I like the fact that I was in enough motion to cause this huge problem. And as long as you're afraid of any challenges like this and any mistakes, you're not going to do the work that's required to succeed. That's my biggest piece. I don't hope that you experience any of these or any other types of mistakes. I just hope that you get in motion that's required to put you at risk of making these mistakes. That's the whole point. And I'd love to hear from some of you. If some of you've done something that you wish you wouldn't have, you have some kind of story about some mistake that you made, it's helpful for us to know, number one, to learn, right? And what I learn now is every single email that I send out, I check on my phone and I check on my computer because they don't look the same and sometimes viruses operate differently. So as long as you learn from this stuff, great. But it also helps that other people are hot messes just like we are, right? So if you have any stories, please share them. When I first started out for Mary Kay, I bought a URL called maryksuccess.com. A couple months later, the company sent me a cease and desist letter because that's their name, and I can't use their name. I know that. I was so I'm embarrassed, I guess, on some level, but I was like, I know what copyright issues are. For whatever reason, I was so excited to build this website and get a bunch of people to come in, and I knew what they wanted is success in Mary Kay. So you might as well make a site called Mary Kay Success. It just makes so much sense, right? Well, I was getting so much traffic that Mary Kay, the company, got word that when people typed in Mary Kay, my page was like the third one that came up on Google because it was getting so much attention. And so the corporate offices sent me a letter that says, that's our copyrighted material. You can't use our name, dumbass. And if you continue to do that, you're going to owe us everything you make, basically. Like, we will own you if you continue to use the company's name. And I was like, of course, I get it. Of course, I know that. I don't know what I was thinking. But I'll tell you what, I got a lot of eyeballs on me, and I got in motion enough to get the attention of the company. First videos, Charcy just sent me a screenshot. She took this image of one of my earlier videos. This is what I usually refer to as my personal space invasion stage. So I used to take out the video cameras, these portable video cameras, way before our phones had cameras, and I would just get so close to it so they could hear me, right? Because there wasn't a good audio on it. I would get so close to it that my head would be cut off, and I would just be so much in your personal space, right? It was so uncomfortable. But I didn't know any better. Yeah, they were awful, but they were some of my very first videos. And if I wouldn't have done those first videos in your personal space with no lighting whatsoever, then I wouldn't have done all the ones that now have gotten like thousands and thousands of views on Facebook and generated a bunch of clients and so forth. So just make mistakes. That's my point. This last one, so we've had broken, I'll talk about this one. We've had broken links and wrong links and links that go to other people's pages, like in the YouTube description on videos. We made so many of these mistakes. And then a big mistake that I made that actually led to bankruptcy is after I made over $300,000 in gross income, although I kept none of it, I decided that I wanted to make $1 million in 2008. And because I had that goal, I'd made all kinds of changes in my business. And that's why our business imploded. I changed so many variables. I stopped focusing on a single person. I stopped selling what I felt comfortable about. I started to go into territories that I didn't have the body for. And the business responded perfectly for that recipe that I was following. And that's because I was driven by an ego goal instead of being driven by my desire to serve. And every time that I've been more committed to my desire to serve, I've actually made a lot more money. So those are my specific goals. I want to end the content tonight, today, whenever you're watching this or wherever you are, with some of the biggest mistakes that I see coaches make across the board. I've probably talked about many, if not all of these. The first one is no niche. Most coaches don't really identify a specific enough niche because, you know, their content can help everybody, but you can't speak to everybody. And when you don't have a niche, you're adding too many variables into a game that you're trying to learn. When you have a specific niche, when you have a specific seeker that you're going after, you're reducing the variables. You're actually getting into more of a place of certainty. You're making it easier for you to maneuver in this game called business, and you're going to be more attractive. We just had somebody that came out of one of our programs last week. She said, okay, I finally got clear on my seeker. I got clear on the value that I bring, and I got my first paid coaching client. And she said that it was a function of her getting clear on who her seeker really is. So when you expand your focus, you're also diluting your focus, which means you're diluting the magnet and the attraction. So it's actually the wrong thing for most people to try to speak to a lot of people at once. It's way better to speak to a single person so that you can learn the business and have more energetic attraction to you. It's like I did my event, how to maximize your athletic ability for high school and college athletes. That was very, very specific. And what happened? I attracted Mary Kay ladies. They were attracted to the specifics and the energy. They weren't attracted to the title itself or the fact that I was talking about athletes. And if I would have named it like how to be successful in life, there's a good chance that they wouldn't have been attracted to it. They were more attracted to the specifics of how to succeed as an athlete. I was talking about the mindset. I was talking about vision. They're like, oh, those things apply to us too. So contrary to what a lot of people think, the more specific you are, the more people you will attract. The wider range of people you will attract with a specific focus. I'm not going to go deeper into that. It's one of the biggest conflicts that coaches have. To teach it fully in depth, it would be over an hour, and I've done that before, so I know what it takes to teach that in depth. So I'm not going to do that here, but it's just one of the biggest mistakes that coaches make. Marketing too early. We talked about going out and doing things and getting visible in ways where you don't have the body and the certainty to actually create success. So you always want to be leaning forward and moving toward the edge of your comfort zone, but at the same time, operate where you have certainty. And don't try to go too far out of the box to where you really don't have any level of attraction for people. And there is a sweet spot where you're constantly challenging the edges of your comfort zone, but you're still bringing your certainty with you. And for most people, that just never gets accomplished. They don't really see where that is, and they don't operate that way. And that's why they're not attracting people. The third one is following somebody else's plan. I think I hammered that pretty well. They're not you and you're not them. So don't follow their plan to a T. You can follow some of the ingredients, but don't try to follow the entire recipe, because if the plan wasn't made for you specifically, starting with you first, then the plan is not perfect for you. Number 4 is ego goals. I talked about my $1 million goal. It was coming from my ego and my intellect, and I wanted to try to prove to myself. I wasn't even bringing home any money when I made $300,000. So if I expanded the same system that generated no money for the family when I made $300,000, then nothing would have changed when I made $1 million. That same system would have just been expanded 3 times and a little bit more, and I still wouldn't have had any money. So when our ego gets involved and it tells us that we should chase dollar amounts, or we should chase image, or we should chase certain titles, it's very, very dangerous, because we're going away from the thing that actually fuels us, which is more about our heart. Number 5, fixing problems versus building greatness. This is even more so important if you're already in business. You might have some clients. You might have a business that's not successful from a profit standpoint yet. And if you try to fix problems, you'll never be able to keep your eye on the vision. That doesn't mean you don't consider and manage the things that need to be fixed, but don't put most of your focus and most of your energy on fixing problems. That's what I was doing in 2008 and 2009 when our business started to implode, and that's why it just continued to implode. It's because I was just trying to fix problems. I was trying to plug all the holes in the boat that was sinking, and I forgot to keep rowing. You're never going to build anything substantial, significant, or successful by fixing problems. And if you're in problem fixing mode, all you're going to see is problems, because that's what you're looking for. So you got to have this idea of what you really want and chase that. whatever your meaning and details around greatness are. Number 6, doing it alone. There's never been a person in human history, in my belief, that has succeeded beyond their current capacity on their own, because we don't see our blind spots. There's a reason that we hold ourselves back. We're holding ourselves back with the mind that we're trying to solve the problem with. The way to increase our capacity to break through our ceilings is to get different perspectives, to get different levels of accountability, to get different ideas, to see things that we're not currently seeing. Yet most people are trying to break out of their container from inside the container, only using the perspectives from inside the container. Their brain says, all we need is to learn how to market on social media, or all we need to do is just get rid of their fears, or get rid of our fears. All we need to do is take more action. That ain't going to bust you out of this container, because the solution is coming from the perspective from inside the container. Remember, you can't solve a problem with the same mind that created the problem, but so many people are trying to do it alone. They don't want to hire a coach. They think it's a sign of weakness, like I did before Melanie pierced my heart with that quote that I mentioned earlier. And let me also say that if you are a coach and you're trying to sell your coaching services, but you aren't a coaching client, number one, I think that's fraudulent. But number two, even more importantly, that's probably why you're struggling. If you're struggling, if you don't have the body to say yes to coaching, how are you going to have the body to sell coaching and get other people to say yes to coaching? If you don't know what that's like to hire a coach, how are you going to have the capacity and the advocacy and the neurology to hold the space for people to say yes to coaching? So if you're in this coaching world and you really want to help people change their lives, you have to hire coaches. Coaches need coaches, exactly. Number 7, most people are searching for more knowledge, and that knowledge just gets put on ice. So ignorance on fire will always beat knowledge on ice. And when you're ignorant on fire, you can make adjustments while you're in motion and then get more strategic. But when you're on ice just seeking more knowledge and you're not in motion to get feedback and learn the things that are not working and learn the things that are working and increase your capacity and your confidence and your certainty and your neurology, none of that stuff happens when you're on ice. You've got to be in motion to learn. You've got to be in motion to keep pushing the walls of that comfort zone. Knowledge is not the answer. So I'd rather you be ignorant on fire than knowledge on ice. And finally, number 8 is this belief that right even exists. What if there was no such thing as right? Because if you think about it, most sabotage is based on the premise that you don't want to do it wrong, or that you don't want to do the wrong thing. You don't want to do the wrong thing, or you don't want to do the right thing wrong. But what if there's no such thing? Try to hold yourself back if there's no such thing as right, therefore there's no such thing as wrong. And what if you just did the things that you were led to do, that your intuition told you to do? What if you just did the things that you wanted to do without the head getting involved in trying to predict the future and decide what's right or wrong? What if what was right is what you wanted to do, and what was wrong is not listening and acting on what you want to do? What if that was the only new definition of right and wrong? Then how would you operate differently? I mean, we are literally trying to predict the future when we're searching for the right thing to do. Even if it's right for somebody else, it doesn't mean it's right for us. Or even if it was right for us back then, it doesn't mean it's going to be right for us now or going forward. This construct that the brain has, that there are right and wrong actions to take based on the future, is literally impossible. So if you're trying to learn what the right thing is to do, you're going to constantly stay stuck. You certainly want to learn from people that have gone before you, from ingredients, from other recipes. I'm not saying just carelessly close your eyes and just go, woo, I'm going to do whatever. But the need to be right and the resistance to act unless you find the guaranteed right is going to put more coaches in the graveyard having never done their work. And sadder than that for me is it means more seekers don't get served than any damage can be created by doing the wrong thing and learning mistakes and sending people to porn sites for 2 months. So how are we doing? We didn't just pass that record. We smashed that record. How many of you have been on the whole time? If you've been on the whole time, please let me know so I can pray for you. Yeah, we accomplished the goal almost twice. Tanika, hopefully I'm pronouncing your name right. Michelle. Lisa had to step away for an hour. What's funny is you had to step away from an hour for an hour, and there was still plenty of time on either side of that hour. Oh, I love it. Oh, cool. I'm glad I'm pronouncing your name right, Tanika. Robin, thank you. Chanel. And yes, Lisa, you came back. I appreciate you coming back. Dell, thank you for being here. Awesome. June from the beginning. That really inspires me. Thank you, Serge. I appreciate that comment. That really inspires me that you guys are a big enough geek about this kind of work that you'll stay in these kinds of deep conversations. And for those of you that weren't on for the whole time, I'm not saying that you're not. You know, if you've been on here for 5 minutes or an hour or 2 hours or whatever it is, just the fact that you are willing to be in these kinds of conversations about what's real and true and what you really need to avoid and what you really need to stay committed to and connected to in order to do this work, I honor you because I'm a coaching snob. I'm a coaching geek. I think coaching is one of, if not the most noble thing that we can do on this planet. When we say, I'm going to take what I've learned and I'm going to help somebody, regardless of what that is, regardless of how you want to help people. If you want to help people remove deep, deep wounds and trauma, awesome. If you want to help people learn how to tie their shoes or do handstands and balance, awesome. If you show up and say, I'm willing to help based on what I've gone through, based on what I've learned, then I honor you. Because most people are, even if they want to do that at some point in time, that really scares them. And I think it scares them because of the level of honor that's in it. So I celebrate you and I honor you and I'll support you however I can. This will be the last 3 hour and 45-minute live video that I do on YouTube until the next one. But I don't plan on doing, you know, almost 4 hours worth of content. What the plan is to give more videos, shorter videos, implementable videos that will help you move the needle in some way, shape, or form. I mean, you couldn't take 3 hours and 45 minutes and immediately implement it anyway. So part of my intention for the channel is to give more consumable and digestible information that you can put into play easier. But it's really inspiring knowing that there are so many of you out there who are on this live or have listened to this whole thing on replay. And there's so many of you out there that have made this choice to do this work. For that, I thank you. And I am here to help and support you in any way. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, then you can subscribe. That was the main intention for today, is to launch it with some kind of party and give away some good content and valuable stuff and tell some stories and talk about links that I sent people to and get some engagement and so forth. So I appreciate all of you. Charcy posted a fan page link if you want to connect on Facebook, facebook.com/Sean Smith fan page. If you have any questions whatsoever, you can email me. Charcy, can you put in my email address, sean@coachseansmith.com? You'll be connected to these videos if you subscribe. There's a little bell next to the subscription, especially when you're on desktop. If you're on mobile, you might not see the bell. Depends on what you're using and whether you're in the app or not or whatever. But if you want to make sure to get notifications, then click on the little bell and you'll get notifications when I go live or when I post more videos. My website is coachseansmith.com. So if you want more information on any of that, you can go there. And I'm pretty easy to find on social media. I am Coach Sean Smith everywhere, on Twitter and Pinterest and Instagram and Facebook and everywhere, and online with our website. So I'm gonna go. As much as there's a part of me that does want to see the 3 hours turn into 4 hours, I am not fully committed to that neurologically. So I'm going to end here. And if any of you have unanswered questions, please send them in to us and we'll support you however we can. And I do want to say publicly, thank you, Charcy. Charcy's been on this whole time. So, you know, one consideration about me doing an almost 4-hour live stream is that Charcy's here for almost 4 hours, hearing stuff that she's heard many times before. So thank you, Charcy, for your service. And she's just over there, a few feet away in one of the other offices. And so I appreciate you, Charcy, for showing up and for monitoring the comments and for helping figure out this platform. We spent like 3 hours yesterday, you guys, figuring out how to get good audio in here. But I mean, the audio is really good, right? We finally figured it out. We had so many different options, but we finally figured out a way to use an actual lavalier mic so that I wasn't just speaking into the computer. So hopefully you enjoyed the audio and you know, the content and all that. Thank you. Good job, team. I appreciate you all, and we will talk to you soon. Look for more videos. Find me on Facebook. Let me know what you think, and have a great night. Take care.